I'm calling to order the Tuesday, April 23rd, 2013 meeting of the Township of South Orange Village Board of Adjustment. May we have a roll call?
Yes, Mr. Don.
Here.
Mr. Descala.
Here.
Mr. Groman. Mr. Parlapiano. Here. Mr. Reeves.
Here.
Mr. Semper.
Here.
Mr. Adler. Here. Mr. Shapiro. And Ms. Warren.
Ms. Warren will not be here this evening. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting on the bulletin board in the Village Hall, the Village's website, and the South Orange Maplewood News Record, and by filing said notice in the office of the village clerk. The application, before we move on to the application, we have the resolution. That's not on the agenda here. Let's.
Mr. Chairman, if we may, there was well, you have the red line copy. Okay.
Yes. So we have a copy of the resolution. This is for the approval on 175 Tishner that we saw last month. And I know Mr. Adler added some things. Did others add?
I didn't see any of it.
Okay, so we have some proposed revisions.
I didn't add any revisions, and I was happy with the revisions that Mr. Adler made.
Okay. We have any other questions?
Could you, if they're not extensive, could you read in the,
Sure.
just tell me what pages?
There is on page 1, it said witnesses including, and he says if these are the only witnesses, just say witnesses. So were these the only witnesses, Jetta, that you mentioned here?
Yeah,
That's
I
just
think
a
that was the
grammatical, that's just an English.
Okay,
comment.
that's your draft, so you'll take care of that.
It's not
What am I
really
thinking?
substantive. Yeah.
This is not her draft.
Okay.
And then the other one, there was, the indent was wrong.
Yeah.
Thank you for pointing that one out. And then there was a number 3, the board noted that he inserted the proposed front walk from the sidewalk to the house, so he makes it clear, which I think is a useful clarification. And then under the first paragraph, under decision and conditions, on the last line in the first paragraph, it said as amended during the hearing. So another clarification. So there was nothing substantive in there that was changed. It was clarifications.
There was one comment, Mr. Chairman, that I offered a copy of the resolution to the applicant for their review. And they had one comment which was on the last page in the conditions where it talked about creating the tandem parking in the garage as opposed to out in the driveway. The resolution says that, and the removal of the proposed bathroom.
Yeah, I noticed.
And he requested that it be changed to, if needed, as a result of including the tandem parking. In other words, if they could fit both, they'd rather keep that. I don't think the board would have any problem with
No, we didn't say you couldn't do it. We said you had to do a tandem garage.
You know, since we're changing that section, there was a thought I had about it, and that it talks about making space in the basement for 2 cars, but it doesn't talk about the law that you're not allowed to park in the front. Is it worth just adding something that says so that law can?
Sure, we can do that.
Right.
Okay, with these revisions and clarifications, may we have a motion?
I move that it pass with the changes that we just discussed.
I second.
Okay, Mr. Descala.
Yes.
Mr. Parlapiano.
Yes.
Mr. Reeves.
Yes.
Mr. Semper.
Yes.
And Mr. Adler.
Yes.
Okay, so now we move on to the business at hand this evening. This is case 1001, Bianca's LLC, 124 5th Street. Applicant is seeking to construct a new single-family home.
Good evening. My name is Paul Pulowski. I'm with the law firm of Schiller and Pittenger, and we represent Bianca's LLC. They are the contract purchasers of Lot 4 on 5th Street here in South Orange. And this is in a residential neighborhood, and we are seeking approval to develop the lot for a single-family home. We're seeking to have the building envelope approved so that we can build a house within the building envelope. Much of the hearing will deal with the one variance that is necessary. In this zone, it is, the required width is 90 feet, and our testimony will be that this lot, this project, conforms in every aspect with every requirement except for one, lot width. This is a 50-foot lot created by subdivision in 1974. I would like to start. We have an architect, we have a planner, we have our seller, all that we're going to provide testimony. I'd like to start with the architect who's going to review a perspective for developing the property. This is Joaquin Moses. You are, Joaquin, you need to talk in a microphone.
Mr. Chairman, you should note that there are two variances. There's also a request for a height variance as part of the application as well.
In one of the proposed options, right?
Yes, and I think we'll hear from that if that comes up. Okay,
Mr.
We're not going to seek the height variance. We had alternative plans, one that conformed and one that tilted the roofs for the height variance. The only reason we sought it was to make a slightly steeper roof, more in conformity with roofs in South Orange, but we're seeking just the one variance.
Okay. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give here this evening is the whole truth?
I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Joaquin Bouzas, B-O-U-Z-A-S. My business is at 150 Union Avenue in East Rutherford, New Jersey. I've testified before this board once before. My license is current and in good standing.
okay, he testified, Mr. Bozes testified on the recent case on Prospect Street. Do we have any other questions for Mr. Bozes, or are we willing to accept him as an expert in architecture? Okay, the board accepts you as an expert.
Thank you. All right, so the property is located on 5th Street. As Mr. Bone said, it's 50 foot wide by 100 feet deep. It's currently vacant. It's a 5th Street is a sloped street. The property actually slopes 5 feet from one corner to the other, actually almost 6 feet. We're proposing a single-family home.
Mr. Kozlowski, is that the plans that were submitted that he's referring to? Are those a copy of the plans that were submitted?
Yes, these are the plans that were submitted.
That's-
These are the copies that were submitted to the board, correct?
Yes, it is.
That's the set that conforms for height?
Yes, this is the no
This is
height
the height
variance version.
conforming set.
Can we please mark that set, Exhibit A1?
A1?
Yeah.
So as we've stated, the variance that we're seeking tonight is lot width. In this Residence A50 zone, 90 feet is required, 50 feet is proposed. It's an existing condition of the property. We are in, because we have no variance in this house, and actually the reason why we were proposing the height variance in the first version was so we wouldn't have to sink the garage, the driveway down into the garage. So in this version, we have the driveway sinks down approximately 3 feet down into the into the basement, where we have a 2-car garage. I'm on sheet A100. On this level, we have a entrance underneath the porch that brings you into an unfinished basement area, which would be storage. We have a full bath off of this basement. And then there's additional storage underneath the porch for trash receptacles, so they wouldn't be out in front of the house. We have stairs coming down into this basement. In the future, for an in-law suite or a child, the basement would get finished eventually. We have 2 window wells that would be installed for egress if it ever was a sleeping area, and stairs that come out into the backyard with a couple of steps that come out into the grade at the rear. At the first floor, we have a full porch across. Oh, we have a rendering. We have a.
This will be A2.
This is a colored rendering of the front elevation on 5th Street. And you could see, I was describing the full porch across the front of the house. You enter into a large foyer. Off this foyer to the left is a living room with pocket doors and a fireplace that fronts the living room, and it's a back-to-back fireplace into the living room and the family room at the rear. To the right of the foyer is a dining room, a half bath off of the dining room, or for this little hallway here that brings you into the kitchen with a large pantry off of the kitchen, and the kitchen faces the rear of the property. Off of this main living space at the rear, which is a combination of the family room and kitchen, which is an open living space, we have a deck that brings you down into the rear yard. On the second floor, there's 4 bedrooms. At the top of the landing, at the front, we have a large laundry, 7 foot by 10.8. We have bedrooms, 12'4" by, that's actually not the small. The smallest bedroom is 13 foot by 11'4". All have closets. Master bedroom is 17 by 14 feet with a large walk-in closet off of the master bedroom and a master bath, which has a toilet room with a pocket door, and then a large 6-foot bath, double vanities, and a stand-up shower.
Joaquin, this is an example of a house that can be built within this envelope, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I'm just going through the layout
Right,
to explain.
but we want to build a conforming house, and this is a conforming home.
Correct, yes, to the parameters that the zoning allows us.
Okay, make sure you speak into the microphone. I'm getting the signal.
Sorry. At the attic floor, at the attic level, we just have a large bonus room with a bathroom off of the bonus room, and then we'd have an HVAC, it's a utility closet there, and then a deck off the back. Again, this is one version of the roof layout. That's the hip roof that you're seeing in the rendering. Another version, depending on the preference of the owner, a gable roof, which basically just gives you the same rooms, a bonus room, a full bathroom, and a HVAC closet at the roof level, at the attic level. The elevations, you saw the front elevation, which is that rendering going around. proposing,
Mr. Moses?
yes, sir.
Before you go further, before I forget the question, the alternates that you're proposing, it looks like you're proposing a second alternate there.
Yes.
All the alternates are conforming, they don't
course.
require variances.
Yes,
I
yes.
want to make that clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't add to the height, doesn't increase the setback or anything like that. What was that? So, the materials, asphalt, 30-year shingle roof, shake vinyl siding at the decorative gable and the bay that comes out, vinyl windows, and a porch. These would be painted wood columns at the porch level, and stucco on the first floor. And here you can see the sunken in, or the garage door that would be sunken into the property. I think just going back to the site plan a minute, I can describe. So we have the driveway that sinks into the garage. Once you're in the house, that's the reason why we put the door underneath the porch. So you would be into the house, whether you have groceries or anything like that. You don't have to walk all the way around. But if you just park in the driveway, you would come around, come up a walkway that would be sloped to the landscape or the contour of the property, and then to the front porch steps.
Mr. Moses?
Yes.
The width of the driveway,
Yes, we have it at 12:10. My client wanted it wide enough so he could open up the doors and not hit the retaining walls.
so that would be a design waiver though.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that would be a design waiver. And then I have a fisheye view of the properties.
A3, fish eye view.
It's more of a
How about a
panoramic,
panoramic view?
panoramic view, yeah.
Hey, I'll go with that, sounds good.
It was too close to my face, I couldn't see it. So panoramic view of the property, which is right here in the center. That's with all the minor trees that are on the site. And then this is the property to the right of the dwelling. The reason why I show this is just to show the contour of the street there. This elevation at the corner of this house, which would be Prospect and Fifth, is at elevation 228. As you come down the hill, the elevation in front of our property is 218, so it's a 10-foot drop. And then as you continue,
Wait a minute. Your contours on the contour plan are different numbers. Are they just relative numbers?
yeah, they're just relative. This is just elevation. And then as you continue, the neighbor to the left is elevation 207. So it's an 11-foot drop. So just to show you the steepness of the property. I think that's it. Any questions?
We have questions for Mr. Moses?
The option that requires the height variance, just describe again, is there anywhere here that we're seeing what that option would look like? It simply raises the house up.
It just raises the house up so we don't have to sink our driveway and create a trench drain at the bottom, which was not preferable, but we were asking for 3-point-something foot variance.
But that entire 3-point-something is for the driveway.
Yes, yeah.
There's no other change to the house.
No.
No change to the size or height of the basement.
Yeah,
You would just dig further or dig less.
correct. Yeah.
Questions?
You said this is a house that could be built.
conforming house that could be built. This is what you're proposing, this very house.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted,
I think they're not bound to it, though, is the concept, when you talk about an envelope.
No, we are actually, so we heard that, we are actually just seeking a building envelope. This is an example of a house that can be built that fully conforms, and we would be building a fully conforming house. We are looking to build a house that complies with all of your building code and all your regulations. The only thing we're seeking here is a variance for width, and in doing that, we want to demonstrate to you the type of house that can be built. But you're correct, we are just looking for the building envelope. The builder wants the latitude to build, make changes as he sees fit.
Well, that's a horse of a different color.
Yes, it is.
So this is just merely an example. This builder has no intention to necessarily build this house or anything even like it.
Well, he spent money on architectural plans and developing it, so it's what, but no, he doesn't want to be locked into this. He wants to be locked into the building envelope.
so I guess I'm not clear. Why was all that testimony about 30-year roof shingles and what kind of siding and what kind of columns they are? What was the point of all that?
It's to,
No, I think this is the plan. The plan is to build this house. What we want is just to be approved that, that we're not going to go further, that we can be at 4'11" or 5'9" from the property line. And so we're seeking what they say by building envelope. Kind of you put a cube around in the middle of the property that we can build within that, which is what we're doing here.
the board's asking a very important question. Are we, because we can apply for one or the other. We're applying specifically for a variance that allows us to build a conforming house within the building envelope. Mm-hmm. Or we can lock ourselves into a specific plan as we did on Prospect Street.
Right.
And the case law is that the board can decide which one they want to do. They can either accept that we can build within the building envelope, which does give the builder more flexibility. Obviously, when he does this as a living, flexibility is important. It allows him to make adjustments to his home based on the buyer. The buyer may want some changes here or there. However, if we're locked into this house, that's the one we have to buy. And when a buyer comes in, this is the plans. The buyer says, no, I want the window over here. Well, you can't move the window 6 inches. We agreed with the zoning board that this is the way it is. So that's the difference. The board does have the right to say, no, that's it. That's the only house you can build, or agree to a building envelope. It's the plan that we're working with, and it's the plan that we would show to a buyer. But on one concept, we'd have flexibility with the buyer. On the other one, we wouldn't. Obviously, we want flexibility. You're right on. That's what it's a difference.
Ms. Gruhl, you want to?
I was actually going to ask the same question because I got that as well. It's not at all uncommon to have a very specific house design for a variance such as this. We know that, this board knows that. It appears to me that you have two options for at least several of at least the third floor, that there are two options on this plan, which makes sense. If there's some flexibility. And I know that this builder has built in South Orange and has a does a nice product, but it would seem to me that it would be reasonable for this board to consider the design and the specific plans in evaluating this.
Well, I think the case law clearly gives the board that. Why we're looking for the envelope is just to have some flexibility with our buyer to make, and how do you say, well, we want flexibility to make minor changes. What are minor changes, and who would decide whether they're minor or not? So if you lock us into his design, we lose that.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
When you say within the envelope, are you talking about the setback envelope or the actual footprint that you're showing for the house here? So theoretically, you could get a buyer that says, I'd rather have a house that was long and thin as opposed to relatively wide. So in other words, you could extend further within your building footprint setback envelope, not exceed your coverage that you show here, and come in and basically build an entirely different house that still complied with every single one of these setbacks.
That's right, and that's specifically why boards have the right to hold us to a specific plan, what I would like is a specific plan with some flexibility, but I'm not sure how to do that.
Well, it sounds like you did develop some flexibility. You presented an alternate version here on the actual plans, which is, from your perspective, it's a smart thing to do, because at least that is in there. So it's not like you haven't presented an alternative for yourself, and I understand from the builder's perspective why you would do something like that.
But it seems a little odd to me that the variance that they're asking for really has nothing to do with the building. It's just a function of lot width. So if you think outside the box, if this was a complying lot,
It wouldn't be here.
they wouldn't be here. And they could build any shape they wanted as long as they didn't exceed any of the setback issues. It would be an as-of-right application.
And let me give my rebuttal to that. Would be they are asking for a variance. The town has said that we no longer wish to have lots of this narrow width.
No, I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying.
But my point is, and this is if they're requesting a variance, one of the land use law goals is maintenance of the character of the neighborhood. So this is our opportunity to make sure that the character of the neighborhood, at least in the terms of architectural style, persist. And if we simply allow, you can have your variance and you can do whatever you want with the house. They could put a little cape, they could put a moon unit up there, they could do whatever they want.
So I guess maybe we might want to hear other testimony if there is any. I've been kind of waiting to hear about the lot width testimony if there is any before I open up with any of my own.
What other
rebuttals.
experts are you going to be offering? Any others?
We have our professional planner, Betsy McKinsey, to discuss the lot width, the creation of the lot. We also have the homeowners to go through. First, I'll go with the homeowners that will discuss their ownership of the lot and
Yeah, I want to hear one. So.
taxes
Okay.
and they have it.
All right. So I still have a question for Mr. Boses. You're proposing a 12-foot something driveway, and our ordinance says 10 feet, and you're doing that again because of why?
Because since we are sinking the driveway, we need to put retaining walls, and the owner didn't want to open up his door all the way and hit the retaining wall. He wanted that, nice width on the. Also, the driveway's the width of the garage, so we don't have to flare it, out in such a short distance.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think of that, Mr. Dunn?
I'd like not to smack my car doors against the retaining wall.
I think
It's
that's
not
perfectly
wide
reasonable.
enough for two cars, so I think that's, if it was wider, I'd have a concern.
Yeah.
Does the board have any other questions for the architect?
What I don't understand is you have come before the board before, and I think some of the questions that you're gonna hear or probably have heard were very similar with respect to the character of the neighborhood. And I think the last property you built, that was a very important issue. I don't think you're very far from the same neighborhood. So what I don't understand is why you wanna have that flexibility. Which part character is important in that neighborhood?
Well, because we did come across a situation on Prospect where a buyer came in and wanted to extend the master bedroom wall a couple feet out, and we would still be within the envelope because we were in farther than the porch, and we weren't allowed to do that. And we lost that buyer. So it was just that kind of little flexibility that we could have given that master bedroom a 2-foot offset to make it bigger for them, and we just couldn't do it.
But the important thing is you retain the character and got another buyer.
It wouldn't have affected the character of the house at all by moving that wall out 2 feet.
Okay, let's hear the rest of the testimony and then.
Do we have any other questions for Mr. Bozos? Does the public have any questions for Mr. Bozos?
Stephen Scholar, represent John Circus, the media.
And
You could give him the microphone.
and make sure you speak into the microphone. And Mr. Bozos, likewise, speak into the microphone. And just for the members of the public, during these phases where we're speaking to the experts, you're asking questions of the experts based upon their testimony. If you have comments about the overall wisdom, usefulness of the application, then you do so at the end. You'll have that opportunity. But right now, it's just asking questions.
Thanks, Mr. Stephen Scholar, represent John Surface, who owns 116 Fifth, which is the immediate adjacent property to the property that's the subject of the application. Just a couple of questions. Did you do any analysis of stormwater runoff as a result of the proposed construction?
Yes, we have to provide stormwater calculations to the town, and that's why we have a dry well in the rear of the property.
You have a dry well in the rear of the property. Did you do any analysis of the soil displacement and what effect that might have on stormwater runoff or other environmental conditions? Because you did testify that it's a slope. The street is a pretty good slope, right?
Yes. We'd actually be reducing the storm runoff to the adjacent property because, well, we're building the structure and creating landscaping and providing lawn, so it would be absorbed better into the soil. Yes.
Now, for the landscaping, you testified before that there were minor trees on the property. There's actually more than 20 trees of greater than 4-inch caliper on the property. They're all coming down as part of this development, right?
No, we're saving. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, around 7 trees that we are keeping.
And the rest of the trees are all coming down.
Yes, yeah.
Did you calculate lot coverage for this plan?
Absolutely, sure.
And could you take me through how you did that?
I draw a what's called a P line on CAD, and you outline the structure, you outline the sidewalks, you outline the driveway, you outline stairs, and take that percentage of the property and.
Do you have the actual numbers? Do you have the actual numbers that you used to calculate lot coverage? Because I couldn't come to the same calculation that you claimed in the application.
How did you try and do that?
About the same way.
With CAD?
Yeah.
You have CAD? And you have the CAD file?
Yeah. I
How
was
did you
working
get
with
the-
somebody to do that.
You what?
I was working with somebody to help me to do that.
Do you have the numbers?
Well, I just want to know how you calculated, what numbers you used. And what's the lot coverage as you calculated?
We have lot coverage is 39.5.
Now, you testified that the drop from this property to Mr. Surface's property is about 11 feet, the immediate downhill property. What does that make the height of this building when standing on his property at an 11 feet drop? What's the height of this building at grade?
What's the height of the building?
Yes.
Well, the height of the
To
building
peak.
is 30, we have 34.7 feet,
So-
34.7 inches.
So then down from his property, which is an 11-foot drop from that, it's another 11 feet looking up at that building from his property, right?
Yeah, minus the height to his eyeballs.
Okay. Minus the height to his eyeballs. Very good. Now, are you familiar with the adjacent housing and what kind of houses are across the street, Mr. Surface's house next door? How would you compare this to those houses?
Pretty similar on the left side of the property, which we are on. You could see we took some architectural elements from Mr. Surface's house and the house over here, which has hip roofs and the overhangs. So we took architectural elements. I mean, it definitely fits within the.
What about the homes across the street?
The homes across the street are 1.5 story, 1 story capes. That
So significantly smaller and lower than what you're proposing to build
Yes.
on this property.
But again, we're conforming with the height of the zone.
Thank you.
Mr. Rinda, their calculation of the height, it was a correct calculation. It's based upon the average grade, correct? Well, let me ask Mr. Moses first. How did you calculate the height?
We'll calculate the height. I've learned from Prospect that you have to take the 4 points from each corner of the property with the grades and to the peak, and you average it.
So that's the correct way in this town.
Yes, you take the existing grade at the four corners of the property, take the average grade, and add the allowable height to that.
Okay. And as far as the dry well, you added that dry well for what reason? Were you required to add it?
No, we weren't required to add it, but we have a trench drain at the bottom of the driveway because it's sloped, so we have to pick up that water. We have a sump pump or sump pit in the house just for groundwater or any possibility of, and then our leaders tie into, should always keep water away from the house, so we tie the leaders into the dry well.
Are you the engineer on this project as well as the architect?
I'm principal in an engineering firm. I didn't do it myself. I have an engineer that
Your
does it.
firm did all the engineering work?
Yes, yes. We do everything in-house. And I provided stormwater calculations to that effect.
We have other questions from anybody else? Come forward.
Hi, I'm Andy Weinberger. I'm one of the owners of the property, and I wanted to ask the architect if you could tell us how far away Mr. Surface's house is from the lot, how far it's set back, and how many feet from our lot to his actual house. Which, by the way, well, okay, thank you.
I don't know exactly how far, because I didn't measure, but I mean, it's quite a distance. I would say it's about 60 feet, and it's set back about 40 feet from the front property line. Those are just my...
In front of his house is probably behind him.
Yep, talking to the mic.
Is the front of his house behind the back of this proposed house?
Just about, yeah.
We have other questions. Come on forward. Come on up.
Just a quick question. My name is Kevin Fahey. I'm a South Orange resident, long time, and I'm representing my mom, who owns the house on the corner of 5th and Prospect, adjacent to this property.
Uphill side.
Yeah, yeah. I was just kind of surprised at something I saw in the plans, and the request here was concerning a variance for the building or the lot width, which is asked to be reduced to 50 feet, being the only variance. But I was kind of curious about the side yard setbacks. This house is being shown in these plans as being 5 feet from the side yards on both sides. And I would have thought that the side yard setback is greater than 5 feet. I don't know exactly what it is. I've not had a chance to look at the plans beyond today. I did not receive any notice of this prior to today. I got a phone call. So I don't know what the minimum building setback is in South Orange for distance from lot lines.
The minimum side yard setback is 4 feet in South Orange?
In South Orange, that's the minimum?
Yeah.
Okay.
And,
Not citywide.
well, I'm in this zone.
The required setback is 4 feet plus 2 inches for every foot in excess of 48 feet of average lot width. So for a 50-foot lot, the required setback is 4 feet, 2 inches.
Okay.
And you had one more question. The side yards and...
I guess the side yard setback was my biggest question. 4 feet, that kind of surprises me. I'm familiar with architectural plans. I've done a lot of this type of work, but...
Oh, I remember what it was. We're not reducing an existing lot to 50 feet.
No, I understand.
The lot is 50 feet.
The lot was 50, but the minimum building width for South Orange has been revised since then.
Right.
So that's the variance request.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
We have other questions. There, come on forward.
Jacob Levine, 219 Prospect Street. Just one quick question. Within like a 3 or 4 block radius, how many other houses have a 50-foot width on their lots? Do you know?
I don't.
Do you know of any?
I don't know. I didn't look.
Thank you.
Mr. Adler, you look like you wanted to ask.
I did, and just to be clear, because it's so close, 39.5% coverage to 40. Did you do the calculations or someone in your firm?
I checked it myself.
And we should at some point discuss the alternative of if we didn't approve any variance, period, irrespective of this particular application, what the implications of that are. Should we discuss that now, or is that something we should ask the attorney, or is that something that you can opine on?
I don't think it's relevant to this application right now.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have a quick one.
Okay, Mr. Dowd.
Do you know when this lot was subdivided? I think you said it in the beginning. Can you just...
September 25th, 1972.
I have a certified copy of the subdivision, September 25th, 1974. 74. 72, yeah, September 25th, 1972.
Do we have that in our packet?
I just picked it up today,
So, did you want to submit that?
I will submit this.
Yeah, that would be nice.
And then the second question relating to that is, do you know if this lot was conforming in 1974?
Yes, it was.
You need to speak into the microphone, please.
Yes, the lot was created in 1972 as a conforming lot.
Okay.
And the town changed the zoning in 2003. Our planner will testify to this. I'm not supposed to testify, that's why we bring it up.
Well,
It was rezoned in 2003, making 94% of the lots in the zone non-conforming.
Okay. So you answered my third question, which was, when was it made non-conforming?
Okay, do you want to mark that exhibit?
A4?
A4.
Thank you. Okay, do we have other questions from the public for the architect? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Quickly bring up Meredith Willis. She is the owner of the property now.
Sue Willis, Meredith Sue Willis, and Andy Weinberger, and we live at 311
Excuse me,
Prospect
wait,
Street.
excuse me. Could you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give here this evening is the whole truth?
I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Meredith Sue Willis, 311 Prospect Street, South Orange. I live there with my husband, Andrew B. Weinberger. And we bought the lot in question, 124 5th Street, in 1987. We bought it as a fully buildable lot. We always intended that someday, when we came close to retirement, we would sell it and have a little bit of money. And we are now approaching retirement, and we are now preparing to sell it. And we discovered, to our horror, that South Orange had changed the rules while we were owning this piece of property. The first thing we did was try very hard to offer it to the Fahey family, and isn't that right, Kevin? That we called, we wrote letters, we called, we talked. They did not ever make a counter offer. We also, at a certain point, shortly after Mr. John Surface moved in, we were talking over the back fence, as it were, and we offered him the lot. We suggested he might want to buy it. He was not interested either. Right, John? And so we're owning this lot. This lot has taxes of now $6,000+ a year. We have now paid something on the order of approaching $200,000 for a lot that we're not going to get anywhere near that much from Mr. Cruz. We have put a tremendous amount of money into that lot. We cut the grass on that lot. We moved the stupid branches on that lot. I am really, really, tired of dealing with this lot and paying for it. And I was just horrified when I found out that South Orange had changed the rules. So, we felt like we were doing all the right things. We pay our taxes. We have never been in arrears. We kept the lot up. I personally cut the grass on it. We offered it to the neighbors before we approached a builder, and then we finally went ahead and Mr. Christian Quiridius, who is our realtor, made the arrangement with Mr. Cruz. So, I'm really hoping you're going to remember that we need to sell this lot, and South Orange changed the rules. Somebody wants to ask me a question.
Mr. Dwyer, is it necessary that looks like two of the homeowners who were offered the lot are here? Should they actually speak on record that they were?
That's a great idea. I mean, we have the testimony of this witness that it was offered.
And they nodded. They both smiled and nodded.
But they're right here.
You want to bring them on, sure, Mr. Chairman.
If they're here, it just adds some more confirmation that this is not fictional. So, Mr. Fahey, you want to step forward first?
Right.
Okay, was this?
Could you raise your right hand?
Yes.
Do you swear from the testimony you give here this evening is the whole truth?
The whole truth, yes.
Please state your name and address.
Kevin Fahey, I live at 435 Prospect Street in South Orange.
So I'm looking here, Mr. Fahey. Well, let me ask you the direct question. Was this offered to you to buy?
Yes.
And I'm seeing here it actually was part of your original property, or maybe your mother's property.
Right, my parents owned the property. My father subdivided the lot in 1972.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I can add one little bit of history about it. When my father subdivided the property, he did that to sell it to the neighbors who lived next door at 311 Prospect, the Marshalls at the time. Marshalls were interested in the property because they wanted to provide a driveway to access their carriage house, where their daughters were actually living at that time. Carriage house is at the rear of this piece of property, adjacent to my parents' property on what was then the Marshall's property at 311 Prospect. So that was the reasoning behind my father selling the property to Mr. Marshall.
Oh. Is that logically make sense, Mr. Dwyer? I mean, wouldn't you just change the property line? Why would you create a lot for a driveway?
You could subdivide it, create a line.
Pardon?
You could
You could.
change the line.
Right, just change the line. Be a lot easier to do.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Fahey? Okay, thank you. And sir, your name?
Yeah. You want me to go over there?
Yes, please, right over here.
Yeah, so John Surface.
You swear or affirm the testimony you'll give here this evening is the whole truth?
I do.
Mr. Surface?
I can confirm that the
Could you
lot...
spell your last name? I'm sorry.
Surface, like the surface of the water.
Okay.
I can confirm that Sue and Andy offered to sell me the property, and that I was not interested when I was looking at purchasing my house. I inquired through my realtor and was told that the lot was non-buildable, and so of course I wasn't interested in buying it.
Thank you. Does anybody have questions? Wait, you can't run away that quickly. We have some questions for you.
Okay.
Who told you it wasn't buildable?
My realtor, but I asked him to check with the town about that.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Surface? Thank you. You can ask a question, yes. Mr. Surface.
Who's your realtor?
His name is Corey Marks of the big firm.
It was with Remax Village Square.
Not Remax, the other big firm.
Starts
I'm
with
going to ask you, so
Weicker?
are you bringing them here so I can ask them what you said?
No, I'm just reporting what happened. Anything else?
No, thank you. Okay, continue.
I just wanted to bring up Mr. Andy Weinberger. He purchased the property from the prior owners. What? The Marshalls. And, you know, I think they gave him a different story as to the use of the property.
Andrew Weinberger, 311 Prospect Street, I do so swear.
You swear that the testimony you give here this evening is the whole truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
The Marshalls were a very nice elderly couple. They were 89 when they moved out. They'd been there 49 years. And we actually did not want to buy the lot, but they insisted we buy it as part of buying the house. We really didn't have a use for the lot, and we've been paying taxes, insurance, maintaining it, shoveling the snow, blowing the leaves, etc., for 27 years, but who's counting? The story Mr. Marshall told us was a little bit different. I think he did mention the driveway, but at one point he said his idea was to actually physically move the carriage house onto the lot, so he would have a house on another lot. And we didn't have any interest in doing that. And I guess he didn't either. He ran out of steam. Any questions?
So I guess,
I do remember mentioning the driveway too. But,
I'm confused here. Where's your house?
we're the second house in on Prospect from Fifth.
The planner gives us.
So the back of this lot faces, attaches to our
Okay,
backyard.
so we'll get that from the planner.
Right.
Okay. We have any questions?
Can I speak to the architecture?
Well, you're,
Not at this time.
Okay.
Later.
okay, do we have any other?
I have our planner
Experts.
explain the basis for the variance. This is Betsy, Elizabeth McKenzie.
Betsy's fine. Actually, can I use this microphone because I need to put my papers down, if that's all right with you? You might have to ask me questions from there.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you'll give is the whole truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and address.
Elizabeth, middle initial C, oh, sorry, Mackenzie, McKenzie, and I am a professional planner. My office is located at 9 Main Street in Flemington, New Jersey. And I have a copy of my curriculum vitae. If you would like to have that for my qualifications, I can also run through them for you.
Why don't you quickly run through the high points?
Certainly. I am the president of my own planning consulting firm, which I established in 1980. So it's now 33 years old. In my role as a professional planning consultant, I offer consulting services to municipalities throughout the state of New Jersey. Currently, I'm the planning consultant to about a dozen municipalities. I also provide testimony on behalf of applicants in other places, such as Mr. Cruz. I also have appeared as an expert witness in Superior Court throughout the state of New Jersey, and I am a court-appointed master in a couple of dozen Mount Laurel cases. So I do a lot with affordable housing as well as regular planning. I've written a lot of master plans during the course of my time as a planner and prepared land use regulations similar to the kind of thing that Ms. Gruhl does for South Orange. And I would say in the course of my experience, I have been involved in more than half of the municipalities in the state of New Jersey, some of them several times over.
Do we have any questions for Ms. McKenzie?
And if you would like my CV as an exhibit, I'm happy to give it to you.
Sure.
I have no questions.
No questions?
Oh, and I am licensed in the state of New Jersey, and I also have national certification through the American Institute of Law. Should add that.
Have you testified before this board before?
I testified before, I think, the planning board for Mr. Cruz, but not the zoning board of adjustment.
Okay. All right, the board accepts you as an expert.
Thank you.
Ms. McKenzie, could you explain the basis for the variance and some of the background for how we got here?
Yes. The property is an isolated vacant lot. It's located, as you know, at 124 5th Street, and it falls pretty much between Prospect and Academy Streets, and it's zoned RA 50. It's identified on the tax map as Lot 4 in Block 2204. And I just, for reference, as we talk about the property and what's around it, there are a number of quite good photographs in Ms. Gruhl's report. I didn't take photographs, but I did reproduce the tax map, which is part of your application materials. But I reproduced it, and maybe you could take one and pass them around to the board members. Because
Please speak into the microphone.
Sorry. As I refer to what's around the property and talk about that, I can refer to the individual lot numbers so you can get a sense of the relationship to the subject property. I'm going to move this. Yes, there's plenty of them. It's just it's so that you'll have something to refer to. And the property is identified with the X in the middle of the circle, which shows the 200-foot radius on 5th Street between Prospect and Academy Streets. It encompasses 5,000 square feet of land with 50 feet of frontage, as you know, and it is vacant, and as has been described to you by previous witnesses, it was once owned by the owner of Lot 5, which is at the corner of Prospect and 5th. That's Mr. Fahey's lot, and it was then sold in 1972 and conveyed to the owners of Lot 6, which is 311 Prospect Street. And you've heard testimony from those owners. I guess at that time it was the Marshalls that bought it. And the applicant has a contract to purchase the lot from its current owners. Regardless of how or what the motivation was for creating the lot, it was created in 1972 as a conforming building lot. And it conformed to all of the requirements of the zone at that time, and those requirements remained in place, in fact, up until 2003, when in all 4 of your major residential zones, the lot width requirements were increased. There was a very specific reason for doing that, and that is because throughout the past decade and even a few years leading up to it, you began to experience what a number of high-value municipalities experience, which is a lot of attempts to subdivide lots into smaller lots, create new lots for development on which people would build oversized houses. And you also experience a number of knockdowns and replacements of charming older houses with large houses that were not consistent with the architectural vernacular and historic character of those zones. And in reading all of your planning documents, I mean, going back to 2000 and going to the 2006 reexamination report, and then the 2007 Smart Growth Plan, which is quite comprehensive, the 2009 report that was done by Higher Gruel Associates, basically justifying the need to create an historic commission and to regulate historic districts and more historic districts more carefully. And then on to the 2011 reexamination report. There has been a consistent concern about the intrusion of new development and the effect that new development has or potentially could have on the character of your existing residential neighborhoods. And so there was a deliberate effort to reduce the number of potential subdivisions. That rationale is stated very explicitly in the Smart Growth Plan, that the intention was to reduce the number of potential subdivisions that could occur within those zones so that you would have less development. What we have is a situation here where we don't have a subdivision that we're proposing. We have an existing isolated lot, which is somewhat, based on some of the case law, is a different sort of situation. Some of the earliest case law on lots that were isolated lots that were attached to other lots owned in common was that they would automatically merge and you'd need a new subdivision. But there was some later case law along the same thread as the original cases, which differentiated lots, such as the lot in question, which have an L-shaped or H-shaped relationship to the rest of the property owned by the owner, where there really is no logical way that you would use that lot in connection with the curtilage of the adjoining lot. This lot has stood as a separate, isolated lot since it was created. It's been taxed as such. And until 2003, there was every expectation that it was a fully developable lot consistent with the RA 50 zoning requirements. Obviously, that changed.
Ms. McKenzie, but this lot is not an H lot or an L lot, right? This lot is a back-to-back lot. Is that correct?
No, it's not a back-to-back lot in the sense of being a through lot. It bumps into, if you look at your tax map, the lot that it is owned in common with is lot 6. So it backs up to the side lot line of lot 6. It actually creates a T-shaped or L-shaped type of situation, but it's more T-shaped, I guess, in this situation because it comes up to the middle of the lot. So it's an unusual configuration. But
the argument then is there's still no merger, correct?
The argument is that there is no merger because of the Churchiello case, which is cited in Cox, which I know you have sitting on your desk, and I looked at, which would seem to argue against any kind of automatic merger for this particular type of situation.
And this lot has maintained separate tax ID numbers?
It has. And according to the current owners, it's been separately taxed and held as a separate tax lot. The obligation when you're looking at the development of an undersized lot, and in this case it's not undersized with respect to the area required for the RA 50 zone, but clearly it is for the width. The burden is on the applicant to demonstrate efforts, that efforts have been made to convey the property either to the adjoining owners on either side, or perhaps to acquire adjacent property, adjacent land that might be used to cure the lot width deficiency. And I looked at that issue here. You've heard testimony already about the fact that this lot has been previously offered before it ever went on the market, it was offered to the adjoining owners on either side of it to see if they had an interest in purchasing it. And I looked at the question of whether or not the property, we could acquire some acreage from the adjacent properties that might cure the deficiency. The owner of Lot 3 to the west, which is Mr. Surface's property, is only about 9 feet wider than the 90-foot requirement. He has about a 99-foot lot width. And there is a garage and driveway located about 5 feet from the common side lot line, so that it to take enough land we would not be able to get enough land from him to cure our deficiency for sure, and in doing so he would have to relocate his garage. So in this case we felt that that was a futile effort, and dealing with Lot 5 to the east, which if you look at the size of Lot 5, looking at the tax map, it's 125 by 100. Technically, it might be large enough so that we would not be creating a non-conforming lot there if we acquired some land. But that house is a fairly deep house, and there is also a garage in the back of it, so that there's really very little usable rear yard already on that lot. So in my opinion, we don't have an opportunity without upsetting existing development in the neighborhood to acquire land from the adjoining property owners. Obviously, this is a kind of situation which under the municipal land use law is a classic hardship situation, and is recognized as such, in the discussions in Cox, and also under the municipal land use law, there is an existing lot width deficiency. It cannot be cured through any reasonable means, such as acquiring adjoining properties or conveying the land to adjoining property owners, because they've expressed no interest in doing that. So that we are now in a situation in which we would like to propose to develop this lot as a legitimate building lot. The applicant is proposing to develop the lot in such a way that a house could be erected on the lot that would be fully conforming to all of your zoning requirements despite the lot width deficiency. And I think that's important. But I also recognize there was a discussion earlier about whether or not the plans that the applicant is showing you should be considered what's really going to happen on the lot, or whether, and might become a condition of your approval, or whether there is you would be willing to just approve the development of this lot within the requisite building envelope and complying with all other requirements without a specific house design. And honestly, and I've advised my client of this, and although he would like to have some flexibility if there's, some issue of relocating a wall or pushing a building, the building out to the back or something, the problem is that the whole reason and the whole discussion in your smart growth plan about having done this change in the lot width requirements was to bring more lots before the zoning board of adjustment so that you would have more control. You have been in the process of moving towards having an historical commission and creating more historical districts and regulating lot development through historical district requirements. But that process was moving along slowly, and it was very apparent that there was a desire for more control over what happened on those remaining infill lots that would be non-conforming and would have to come to this board. And there, in the smart growth plan, there was a discussion about, well, what if it was 75-foot lots or 60-foot lots, and the decision was made to leave it at 90-foot wide lots, simply because the difference in terms of how many lots would become non-conforming wasn't that great, and for the control that you would get, that was viewed to be an advantage. So I think my client is willing to accept that if you like the house he has proposed, he may be maybe subject to a condition to that effect. He would obviously like to have a little more flexibility to make some changes that don't alter the general exterior or basic appearance of the building, but that would allow him to make field adjustments to respond to the wishes of the clients for whom he ends up building the house. That is within the board's discretion. And I understand where that comes from, and it is incumbent on us not just to prove hardship, which I think we have a clear hardship in this case, but also satisfy you that if you do grant the variance, there will be no substantial detriment to the public good, read to the neighborhood, and no substantial impairment of the intent and purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. And in that case, I have to say, based on what I have read of the intent and purpose of your zone plan and zoning ordinance, you may very well want to exercise that kind of control. I accept that, and my client accepts it, even though he ran into a little trouble with that kind of constraint previously. I would like to also add, looking at the tax map for the area, there was a question from the public, very reasonable question, as to lot widths in this immediate area. Now, if you look along Prospect Street, the lots are much bigger. If you look down on Academy Street, which is in a different zone, the lots are much narrower. 5th Street is kind of a mix, and you can see that Lot 5 has, although it has 100 feet on Prospect Street, it has 125 feet on 5th, although that's the side of the house. We have 50 feet. Mr. Surface has 99.1 feet along the frontage of 5th Street. And then there is a 40-foot wide lot that is still in the RA50 zone. I checked both your old and new zoning map to make sure that that line was correct, and that is in the RA50 zone. Across the street, you have a property that fronts on Prospect that has almost 140 feet of frontage on 5th Street. Then you have a 60-foot wide lot and then a 75-foot wide lot. Both the 60-foot wide lot and the 75-foot wide lot are developed with houses which, while lower in their overall profile, are not in keeping, they're very attractive houses, but they're not in keeping with the sort of 2-story, 2 to 3-story houses that you have in your more historic neighborhoods. And that was really what the applicant was attempting to replicate in the house design that he had proposed to you. And I think that is a more appropriate house design if you're trying to foster the objectives of maintaining the historic character of the Prospect Street Historic District, which is what is encompasses this particular property. And with that, I think that we can satisfy the negative criteria with respect to the granting of this variance, and I think we have a clear hardship based upon the fact that this is an isolated, undersized lot that was not created as an isolated, undersized lot, but became so by virtue of a change in zoning, which, while understandable and warranted, did have an effect on this property.
With respect to this lot, if the variance is not granted, what can be developed on this lot?
Nothing.
Gas station, a Dunkin' Donuts?
No. Good heavens, no. No, the property effectively is zoned into inutility, and it becomes sort of tantamount to a taking of the property, which is why there are even cases regarding undersized lots and what happens to them. And the courts have recognized that a valid undersized lot, that where there really is no other alternative, may need to be developed.
Thank you.
The taking example that you just provided is related to lots that aren't adjacent to lots that are in common ownership. Is that correct?
That is correct. There is a doctrine of merger, which was the original case law, the Lechner v. Campoli case, which basically said that if you have adjacent properties, they're automatically merged. You'd have to have a re-subdivision, and it would have to be conforming. However, there have been later cases that have modified the applicability of Lechner v. Campoli, and the most recent one that really is right on point with this one is the Church Yellow case, which is cited in the Cox book, and that has to do with lots that front on different streets and have no relationship to one another. It's become clear that the Lechner case really deals with lots fronting on the same street.
So was the term taking used in this Churchiello case that you're referring to?
I don't know if it was actually used, but the Churchiello case was one where the court said it had to be approved as a separate lot.
Do we have a copy of the tax card? Oh, I know we have the tax map. Do we have the tax card in our application package?
Yes, we do.
Do you have the tax card? Do you want the tax card for this lot? Do you have the tax? You don't have the tax card.
Certificate of paid taxes.
We have evidence that they
can't-
paid taxes. We have the deed.
But not a card.
No. Is this what you're looking for?
I don't think so. Let me look.
You don't normally have the card in the,
Pardon me?
you don't normally have the card in the application.
Right. Okay.
Where's it say? You have other questions, Mr. Discallo?
I do. The houses at lot 16, 17, and 18 across the street in block 2008.
Yes.
You said that those houses are smaller in scale.
Just 17 and 18.
Okay, I was going to say 16 is
No,
awfully large.
16 is a big house, and that fronts
is.
on Prospect. So
Okay.
it's 17 and 18, the
Okay.
two middle lots. They're really, if you look at the lots that actually face Fifth Street, you really only have lots 2, 3, 4, 17, and 18. The others face Prospect, although they have frontage on Fifth.
And so the odd house out is on lot 3.
Lot 3 has more frontage than any of the
And
others
it's a
that
large,
actually front
and
right.
it's a large house is what I was asking.
It's not I don't think it's a huge house. It's a nicely sized house, and it's nicely located on its lot, and it does have a big front yard. It's not a huge house.
How does it compare to the envelope being proposed by the applicant?
Well, first of all, I disagree with the architect a little bit. I don't think it's as much as 60 feet away because it's at least 30 feet wide.
You need to use the
Sideways setback.
Speak into the microphone, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ms. McKenzie.
Sorry.
I have a loud voice, and I thought they could hear me in Frenton. I apologize.
We can all hear you fine. We just want to make
We
sure
have-
that
That I picked up.
Trenton can hear you.
I do
right?
understand.
We have groupies who watch us from home.
Okay.
It's a private thing, just
That's fine. So I would say the house is maybe will be a little. That house is perhaps a little less deep and perhaps a little wider than what's contemplated on the subject property.
And-
It's a two-story house, though.
Okay, but bulk-wise, it would be smaller than what's proposed?
Not significantly. I think it's just a little different.
Okay.
That's my impression. I didn't make a specific examination of whether the houses would be alike, because they won't be alike.
Right.
But that's part of the charm of South Orange, is the houses
Oh, yeah.
aren't alike. I like that about it. And I think that's part of what you want to avoid, having houses that are alike. But in any case, so they won't be alike, but it's comparable. He has a large area leading up to his garage, which is the structure that is located close to the common property line.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Ms. McKenzie, I don't suppose you would know where in the Cox's book the exception for the merger of these.
Yes.
The whole section on 1615.1 and 15.2, Mr. Chairman. And the Churchielli case is on
Page 453 of that house.
453.
You're looking at the
Okay.
brand new
At the bottom.
Cox book, the 2013 edition.
Which we are.
Right.
Bottom, 253. 453.
I have little tabs in the discussion. And then it goes on to the following page.
I'd like to point out that the merger doctrine doesn't apply because this lot was created by subdivision after the land use law in 1972. Lochner and the merger doctrine doesn't apply. And you have to remember that Lochner is set up for where I grew up. I grew up in Manville, and the entire town was platted out in lots that were 20 by 100. And those then merged. And that's the situation that Lochner addressed. When you built a home in Manville, right after World War II, you bought a number of lots. You bought 4 lots or 5 lots. And Lochner was the situation in Piscataway, across the river from Manville, where all this was plotted out in these 20 by 100 foot lots. And Lochner recognized that they aren't building lots, and those lines don't exist. And those were created under the MAP Act. This lot was created in 1972. It has nothing to do with merger. It also doesn't in any way contribute to the conformity or non-conformity of your lot that it forms a T with. So merger is not an issue with this lot. Either under the Lochner principle, which doesn't apply because it was subdivided and recognized by South Orange as a separate lot in a subdivision after the land use law.
Is that a legal opinion or a fact?
I think I agree that Lochner doesn't apply because they're not side to side on the same street, which is about all that's left of Lochner after you take the redefinition of subdivision under the municipal land use law and the cases that followed it. So I don't think merger applies because they're not side by side on the same frontage. Right, I agree with that.
You get to the same answer, maybe differently, but that's good enough.
Right. And there is some, I think, some validity to, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just got, this gentleman said he had to leave and he wanted to have a letter introduced, whatever. I can't respond to that, so I'm sorry. I did not mean to interrupt, but he just came over to me and said that.
Come on up here.
Mr. Cordery's is across the street from where the applicant is building on Prospect. I just wanted to say a few words.
Did you have questions? Come on up to the microphone.
Yeah, my name is Bill Crowley. I live at 340 Prospect Street, South Orange. I live right across the street from the proposed project.
Did you have questions or a statement?
I just had a statement to read, and unfortunately I have to leave. My son is way past his bedtime, and I have to wait.
How long is the statement going to take?
30 seconds or less.
That sounds good. Okay, go ahead.
I just want to state my support for the proposed project and the applicant's submission for a variance. I opposed his original project, which was located across the street from me, which he's almost completed. And I had some serious concerns about that, which I think he addressed in the construction, which gives me faith that he'll do a good job if he's allowed the opportunity to build on 5th Street. And as a taxpayer, I fully support it because it would add a rateable to the town and hopefully reduce our overall tax burden. And also, I think the developer will do a good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Crowley, I'm sorry, what was your address? I mean, do you know the block and lot?
340 Prospect Street. We're directly across the street from
24,
the
lot
corner
24,
corner property.
block 2205.
At the corner of 5th and Prospect Street.
Oh,
right there.
Over there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So we received notice about that.
All right, thank you.
And I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Okay, so we're back to Ms. McKenzie, and I think Ms. Gruhl, you had your hand up.
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, but I wanted to make sure I conveyed what he requested. No,
Mr. Adler.
Just to put this to bed, because you said that the property had been offered, as Dr. Weinberg testified, to the neighbors. I guess we ought to know what the offers were. Only because, I mean, in theoretical contemplation, if the offer was, I'm offering you this property for $12 million. No, you know,
Yes.
I have no handle on what it is, so I'd like to put that to bed somehow. Are you familiar with that?
I do not know. All I know is that in the discussion in Cox on isolated lot cases and that merger issue, there was this whole question of how you value the lot, and apparently it should be based on fair market value, assuming the grant of a variance. But the variance could be conditioned on somebody else buying it and not ever being effectuated, in which case the variance would go away. That's what I understand, but that's all I know. I don't know what was offered.
It's a valid question.
The law is that we offered at its value with the variance. I've spoken with Mr. Weinberger. He recalls his offer being in the neighborhood of 155. Our offer was 170. Emilio, 170, right?
75.
175. And that is based on the value with the variance, which is what the case law authorizes. We're just supposed to recover our bargain.
So I'm confused by, I guess, the use of pronouns and the term offer here. So you offered, the applicant property owner offered to sell the property to adjacent neighbors.
We specifically did.
At a price that they
right
defined.
Before this hearing, I think last week we specifically made the offer. We knew that it had been offered to them by the prior owner, but we wanted to get it on the record that we were also offering it to Mr. Surface, just really,
Should we get Mr. Surface and Mr. Fahey, ask them to come forward again and ask them what it was, what it was offered at? Was it?
I'm not even clear on who made the offer. Who's the prior owner that made the offer?
No, it's this owner. They're talking about this owner.
Current owner.
Yeah.
Yep. Mr. Surface. So,
I have already
yes,
to do this again?
You're sworn in, yes.
Yeah. So, yes, I received a letter from Mr. Baum, the attorney for Mr. Cruz, and offering me the property for $175,000. Frankly, I don't understand how my inability to pull $175,000 out of my pocket influences the validity of this whole application. But that is the facts.
So as a follow-up, did they offer to buy a portion of your property?
No. No. And of course, my response to the $175,000 offer when my attorney spoke to me about it was, why would I spend that much for an unbuildable lot?
Okay. Mr. Fahey?
I honestly don't remember the exact numbers. Unfortunately, my mom owns this property and lives at 305 Prospect still, but she's 96 years old and was certainly not in a position to buy the piece of property. So we really couldn't consider it. Unfortunately, I tried to get a family consensus going on, but it was really just not feasible for us to consider it.
Okay, thank you.
Similarly, did anyone offer to buy a portion of your mother's property?
No.
And if I could just clarify, I indicated that we looked at that question as to whether there would be any reason to do that and determined that it would have been futile.
Okay.
Not that we offered. I just want to be clear, I did not testify that we offered it.
Ms. McKenzie, you stated that correctly that the purpose of that ordinance change in 2003 was to prevent the subdivision of larger, particularly historic lots,
yes,
and the creation of oversized properties on those lots. Since you are a planner, I think you should testify why is that not what's happening here?
Absolutely. First of all, we are not proposing a subdivision. If we were proposing to create a subdivision, I don't think that you would approve it. But we, unless we had, 180 feet, but we don't. I think it's very clear that that was the intention, was to discourage subdivisions, particularly of older properties that have gracious large buildings on them. We have an existing undersized lot. It was acknowledged in the analysis that's part of Appendix A to the Smart Growth Plan that there were certain lots that were just existing undersized lots. That kind of situation, it became more, it was a conforming lot at the time, it became an undersized lot as a result of the rezoning. But that is a kind of situation where you have a different set of circumstances. You're going to have development on those lots unless they can be acquired by adjoining owners. And in this particular case, we don't, all we can do is develop the property as closely as possible to the zoning requirements, and we comply with all of them other than the lot width, and also try to comply with all of the language about design and character of development in your established residential neighborhoods, and that's the effort that my client has made. And I looked at his house on Prospect that he's finishing up. I think he's done a great job of fitting in a new house in an area full of beautiful historic homes, and it fits in well.
Okay, I have another question for you. The proposed dry well this is on the first.
You're getting over my area of expertise. I'm happy to talk to you about it to the extent that I can read the same plans, but...
Well, I just noticed this, that dry well is much closer to the frame dwelling in the rear, which I guess is the current owner's other house there.
The carriage house, yes.
It's a carriage house.
Which, by the way, does not appear to be occupied right now.
No, it's not at all.
So it's just a carriage house.
Yes.
Is it a carriage house that has been rented, or yes, please.
The carriage house was converted by the Marshalls into a living space in which their family lived, parts of their family lived. It's not been occupied for 25 years or 20, I don't know, huge amount of time.
So we'll hear that application.
But it doesn't have garage doors. It's not used as a garage either.
Okay, so I guess I have a question now for the architect, or since we don't have an engineer. You said you see it there. Is that going to have any effect on that carriage house as far as undermining, softening up the ground beneath it? Because I know what we're going to hear in the next couple of years is a potential variance application for residency in that.
At that distance, it should not have an effect. It's a small dry well. Actually, I have a 6-foot diameter. It's probably 500 gallons of water, but it slowly gets seeped into the ground. If you'd like, we can move that, further into our property, so it has more distance from that block garage and frame dwelling. But I mean, from my experience, it shouldn't. People put that in their driveways all the time, a couple of feet away from their foundations.
I can't even claim to know what would be appropriate or not. This is out of my league. Mr. Renda, is it ballpark? Does it look like it's appropriately placed?
Typically, we recommend that drywall systems be placed a minimum of 10 feet from any structure. The reason being, when the carriage house was built or constructed, I assume there is no basement or anything there. There's also the garage on the adjacent property. Practically speaking, when that structure was built, the soil around the foundation of that structure was disturbed. So you want to keep the dry well away from any soil that was disturbed at that time and keep it into an area that we would term undisturbed soil. So where they have it located does appear to be a minimum of 10 feet away. It wouldn't hurt for them to perhaps slide it over, slide it to closer to the center of the property, because it is an underground system. And the size of the dry well would be conditioned on perk tests, studies that are done, in that soil to see how quickly the water can drain into the soil that's there now, and would be sized appropriately based on the volume of water that they're anticipating to discharge in there. I don't think the actual location is a problem, but if it is if it is a concern from the neighbors, then it can very easily be moved and shifted over.
How far would you suggest shifting it over? Another 5 feet?
Based on the scale of the drawing, it's already at least, it looks like it's already at least about 10 feet from the neighbors, from Mr. Surface's garage. But again, there's no basement there, so there isn't a concern of the water seeping into the ground and getting into the foundation of the structure.
So it's only if there's a basement?
Typically, if there's a basement.
So there's not going to be a basement, there's not going to be a basement on the carriage house?
I would assume there is no basement.
I got it now, I got it, so, all right.
Typically, dry wells are installed. I mean, the applicant isn't necessarily required to put in a dry well.
Right.
Typically, the ordinance does require dry wells if they're going to exceed the lot coverage with patios or decks. They're allowed to go over an additional 10% of what's allowed if they compensate with a dry well. And in those cases, we recommend that the dry well be placed as far away from the basement foundation as possible, because you just don't want the water to circulate back into the basement. Sump pumps, things like that.
Okay, so the owner said, or the owner said that if it's not required, we choose not to install it. If you're concerned about it, then we can remove it.
No, my concern was answered with the fact that there's no basement on the adjoining property, so I have no problem with it.
The dry well is a good idea to help control the runoff from the site.
It's a good idea.
Because you are making what is now a landscaped site, a pervious site, so it doesn't hurt to put the dry well in. The other situation is the driveway and the drain in the driveway. That drain has to go somewhere. And because of the grading of the site and the height, and the applicant's chosen not to go with the height variance, and in doing so, the pitch of the driveway now drains from the street, from the sidewalk towards the house, as opposed to from the garage to the sidewalk. If they were to raise the house up and go for the variance, that's why they need this system. It's got to go somewhere.
Right.
I have a procedural question, I guess, from a legal perspective. If this lot really never effectively used as a lot, I think you've stated that Mr. Dwyer, that the lots haven't collapsed together.
I don't believe they have under Lochner. I don't believe they've merged.
Well, okay. So we wouldn't consider this like a re-subdivision by virtue of the fact that if we grant a variance for lot width, we wouldn't be creating a new lot. Right. Via re-subdivision. Right. Okay. So there's really no tie-in to the other lot at all. This application is only for lot
standalone
4 by itself.
Right.
Okay.
Mr. Adler.
I had a question, maybe Sal can help me, is because we had this revision to the ordinance on coverage, and it talks about pervious surface, and the plans, the applicant's plans say permeable, and I just want to make sure that the 40% calculation, which has been calculated by the applicant to 39.5, takes this into account, and it's using different word for the same thing, or what is it?
I think the applicant should testify. I don't believe that they use the pervious pavement credit, let's call it, in their calculation. If the architect wants to confirm that, I think it's the overall coverage is at the 39.5.
We are proposing permeable pavement in the driveway leading down into the garage, where I have a detail on sheet, where is it? S100. On the bottom right-hand corner, permeable pavement detail. That is the detail that we're proposing using that driveway, which essentially makes that driveway 100% permeable with pavers, especially designed for that.
So you didn't include the driveway area in your calculation for lot coverage?
Correct.
100% permeable?
100% permeable.
Wow, that's a lot.
That,
They're made out of sand.
that we would have to.
I say that skeptically, that's a lot.
Okay. If that's the case, then we would need the manufacturer's specifications for the pavers that you're going to be using. Typically, permeable pavers are considered 50%, 30% porous, and that's the credit that you would get back. It wouldn't be the full area. So then the lot coverage calculation may need to be addressed and may need to be corrected at that point.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just note that on T100, there is a breakdown of the calculation for lot coverage, and there it shows it's 39.1%. So it's broken down into 3 categories.
Yeah, and no, I misspoke before, it's 60% permeable.
Okay.
That's why we were able to take 40% of that.
Okay.
That's...
Yeah.
All right, then.
And this is, I mean, I don't know if we want to put it into, submit it into evidence, but this is the permeable pavers from Old Castle.
Does it say 60%, Sal?
Sorry.
Should this be marked?
Yes. You're offering that, Mr. Pawlowski? Is this being offered as an exhibit?
Yeah, it's permeable paver cut sheet.
You're going to mark that as an exhibit?
Yes, please.
A7, I think I have it.
I think that's right.
Yes.
Does it have the calculation, Sal?
I marked it.
I spoke to the representative, and by using the one that he specified, we can reduce it by 60%. It could,
This
reduce
says
runoff.
by 25%.
Right. It can reduce runoff, well, it can reduce runoff to 0 for the most frequent storms. So based on the storm, like a 5, a 10-year storm, which doesn't have that much rainfall, it can reduce it to 0. On a 25-year storm, he'd said it could reduce it to 60% permeability. So that was...
So we have some variability in the degree that they're permeable.
I would just point out the applicant is not seeking a lot coverage variance, so if there's a problem, he's going to have to meet your lot coverage limits.
True.
It's a good point.
The only saving grace in this is that because of the design of the driveway, if it's not permeable, it's going to just sit in the driveway until ultimately, the driveway itself will act as a detention basin because it won't have any place to go.
Well, the driveway is connected to the dry well.
It's connected to the dry well, which will also seep into the ground.
Yeah, when I saw this plan, I saw a driveway that looked like it was going to just pour water into the basement, because of the way the garage is set up.
Because the drain won't work?
Well, there is
It'll be
the
drain.
possibility that the drain could fail. I mean, there are concerns with having the driveways drain into the garage area, but that's the applicant's choice if they choose to create it that way.
It was that alternative or come in for a height variance to raise up the driveway, which we did not think would be approved.
And then, or the other option is to somewhat reduce the lot coverage in a different area of the site.
So are we, to get to the question at hand, is this within the 40% coverage envelope?
Well, I think the key point is the one the planner made, which is they're not asking for a variance, and so they have to come in within the confines of the zone.
Ultimately, if approved, the design of the driveway, if they're going to get credit for the porous pavement or the permeable pavement, it's going to have to meet the standards that will allow them the percentage of reduction in lot coverage that will keep them within the zone requirement.
Okay. We okay with that? Okay. We have other questions for Ms. McKenzie? Okay. Ms. Gould?
No.
Do members of the public have any questions for Ms. McKenzie? Okay, we actually, just one second. We have Mr. Don has a question.
I guess my question doesn't deal so much with your variance. It deals more with the planning aspect of a house that is 39 feet wide on a lot that's only 50 feet wide, proportionally. It seems to me that this house wants to be narrower and a little deeper, because it just seems to be, I mean, if we're supposed to kind of define the envelope, if I was defining this envelope from a planning point of view, I would say I would want a 32-foot wide house that's 40 feet deep instead of a 39-foot wide house that's only 33 feet deep. I mean, I just think as it presents itself on the street, it's a pretty big house visually, maybe not really, but visually on a pretty narrow lot.
Well, it was not, remember that when this zone was created,
No, I understand.
it was not considered to be a particularly narrow lot, and these were considered to be appropriate side yard setbacks for a lot of this width. And we are conforming, we're even a few inches, to the good on, in terms of the side yard setback in each case. However, I understand the point that you're making, but I think the applicant's effort to try to have a house that presents in a way that is fairly similar to the architectural vernacular of the area is part of what created a little bit more width. I mean, traditionally a 40-foot wide house is not an unusual thing to see on a 50-foot wide lot, and I mean it's fairly typical. So, I mean, if the board is troubled by it, we can go to it, but there are no planning reasons I can think of not to approve what is proposed, because it is in compliance with the ordinance. But maybe the architect has some comments.
Yeah. Well, I just want to show that that although we may be, we're meeting and actually above your required setback, but to add to that, the houses to the left and to the right have a pretty deep rear yard and side yard themselves. And so, although it may look tight with the 50-foot lot, there's the buffer to the adjacent houses is pretty large.
Yeah, but the buffer is a function of their property, not
Right.
your property.
Correct. Which acts as a streetscape.
I would point instead, I understand the point that he's making, but you don't intend for people to borrow yard area from adjacent properties. But I would point, the two lots that are across the street that are also 75 feet and 60 feet, they're not 90 feet, but they're not as small as 50 feet, also come very close to their side lot lines in both cases. So,
But
and it doesn't...
they're shallower.
They are shallower lots, there's no question. They are very different style houses, in part because of the shallowness of those lots. I think they're only 75 feet or something in depth. But I'm only pointing out that it is not inconsistent with that street to have people that go right to the side yard setback with their houses. I think what the applicant is proposing is a style of house that's more appropriate to the overall Prospect Street Historic District vernacular, but it is not, it's not inconsistent also with those houses on Fifth that are directly across the street from it, and that we'll have to face it.
I don't agree, but
Would you say those houses across the street are also 40 feet in width from the
think
front?
they're
I saw-
more.
yeah.
Because because where the garages are located.
Any other questions? Okay, let's take questions from members of the public.
Mr. Chairman, I have pictures of we have pictures of the houses across the street, the houses next door. We've been talking about them and everybody's been speculating. I'd just like to present to the witness and to the board,
There are also pictures in Ms. Gruhl's
so we
report.
can look at them
Are there?
together. Someplace to put them.
Let's mark that, Mr. Scholar. Is it all on one piece?
All in one piece.
We'll make that O-1.
Sounds good.
And could you describe what it is?
It's just simply a board with pictures of the homes across the street at 115 Fifth Street, 121 Fifth Street, the house downhill next door, Mr. Surface's house at 116, the drawings that were in the, that were submitted with the application for
Microphone, please, Mr.
proposed
Scholar.
construction.
Microphone, please.
For the proposed construction, and then some pictures of the proposed building lot in its current condition. Not the panoramic sweeping view, but to show you the... So, the question for the witness, I would like to turn this around so you can see it somehow.
Why don't you put it on it? Walk around with this. I might have to.
May I just ask who took these photos?
I did. I'm sorry, did you ask? I did.
Yes.
I did. Would you like me to testify to them?
I'm
Anybody?
just asking for the board.
I took these pictures of them. I don't think anybody's suggesting they're not as representative of the other properties on Fifth Street.
When did you take them? When?
Within the last week.
Okay.
Steve, are you testifying also, or are you just the attorney?
It was just asked who took the pictures. I just answered the question.
Okay, so go ahead and ask your question.
The question was, you talked about the smart growth plan
Yes.
and the specific purpose of the zoning changes to be to eliminate oversized construction in infill residential neighborhoods, right?
Yes.
And I'm just looking at the homes across the street from this property and looking at the proposed construction. And it seems to me that this is exactly the kind of overbuilding that the village trustees had in mind when they changed the zoning requirements to prevent exactly this kind of infill construction. If you look at it in the context of the homes across the street.
Is that a question?
Yes. Isn't this exactly the kind of over construction that the trustees were trying to address?
I don't think so. I think what they were trying to address were situations where people would subdivide larger lots that might have had lovely old homes on them, create smaller lots, and then build very large houses on them. This isn't going to be an overly large house. It's a nice size house, and it fits squarely within all of the parameters of your zoning ordinance in terms of the setbacks, the coverage, the height, and all of the other parameters that are used to determine whether a house is oversized or not. It's also designed to pick up on some of the design guidelines that are set forth in the smart growth plan and also in the historic recommendations that were prepared by the consultant, so that you get something that fits in well with the overall character of the neighborhood, not just Fifth Street alone, but also the larger Prospect Street Historic District.
But just looking at the Fifth Street homes, the home proposed to be constructed is significantly taller than the homes across the street, right?
It is. The homes across the street are actually the anomaly in terms of the type of development that has occurred throughout the Prospect Street Historic District, if you want to look at that entire area. And they're an anomaly even within the immediate vicinity along Prospect and the immediate vicinity of the property.
But those anomalies are the homes that are immediately across the street from the...
They are. There's no question. They're nice homes. They're just different from... they were built later, and they're different from the character of the older homes that exist. And what we've tried to do is replicate the character of the older homes.
And the home immediately downhill, Mr. Surface's house,
Yes.
testified is on about 100-foot frontage, correct?
He has
Wide?
99.1 or something, yes.
Okay, so about 100 feet wide. And do you know how far his house is set back from the street?
I didn't take that measurement. The architect suggested it might be about 40 feet, and I don't know the answer to that. I think it's closer than 60 feet to the lot line because it's a wider house, and he also has a side yard setback. So I think it's more like 45 or 50 feet to the lot line.
So if I told you it was 65 feet setback from the street?
I wouldn't have any basis to argue, or I didn't measure that.
And the house that's proposed is proposed to be set back 25 feet from the street?
Yes, whatever the setback is that's required. It has a particular proposal, I've forgotten now. But yes, it's to meet the ordinance.
And the uphill side of the proposed house is less than 20 feet from the back of the home on Prospect, right?
You mean from?
The home at the corner of Prospect and Fifth, at the top of the street.
I don't know that it's not shown on here. The back of that. Yes.
The side.
My client is telling me it's 28 feet to the lot line. I don't have the information, so I'm reporting to you. Okay, it's on the subdivision map apparently.
I just want to note also that the house that's shown here is the house that would require the height variance. That's not the house that we presented tonight.
So the pictures are, the difference in the homes is 3 feet in height? Is that right?
Yeah, 3.5.
Otherwise, it's the same house? Correct?
I'm just noting that for the
I understand, but other than the 3 feet difference in height, it's the same house.
Okay. Do you have other questions? I think Miss McKinsey answered your question. Do you have other questions?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Do we have other questions for Miss McKinsey? Sir?
So you said that...
No, wait a second.
Joe Mayer, 237 Prospect Street.
Okay, Mr. Mayor.
Corner of 5th and Prospect. So it's across from where this house is being developed and next to
Lot
where
16?
the new
Lot
house is
16.
built. So you were testifying that that the design was created to fit in the character of the neighborhood?
That was the
and yet
intention.
it sounded like they were trying to apply for a variance that wouldn't take that into account.
I'm sorry. I don't
They were asking for an envelope variance, as far as I understood, and not for this particular house?
What my client was hoping for, but I persuaded him that given the negative criteria that have to be satisfied for granting a variance, it's not likely that the board isn't going to condition its approval on a specific house design. My client was hoping for some more flexibility, not because he doesn't want to build this type of house, but because if he wants to push out a wall or do something different, as long as it's within the confines of the ordinance, he hoped to have the flexibility to do that. You can give him that flexibility or not. That is within the board's discretion. It is important that the board be satisfied that if they grant the variance, there will be no substantial detriment to the public good and no substantial impairment of the intent and purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. So if they have to grant a variance to cure the hardship, a way to address the negative criteria is to impose reasonable conditions, and the board in its discretion will determine what those are. So my client is willing to accept whatever conditions the board imposes.
Okay. So I guess it's still a little unclear. Are you asking them to approve this house or a house very similar to this?
I'm
with only
suggesting-
minimal changes? Or a house of this size with this setback in this location that could be a stucco house, it could be an aluminum house, it could be a round house, it could be anything. I don't expect that that's what he'll build, but he would be able to do that under what he said he wanted to be able to do.
I didn't mean to interrupt. He would be prepared to build a house with these design elements. If he had some flexibility, he would prefer that, but he is willing to accept the fact that he may not get that. He's a grown-up.
So I'm just going to add one, because I was the one who raised the issue with the house, where the house was approved with particular design, a one-story addition, bump out closest to our property, And midway through the construction, I noticed that it was being built as 2 stories. And I went to the board, to Sal, and said, how can this be? The board approved a house and it's being built differently. And it sounded to me like that would be okay as long as he wasn't changing the lot coverage. What I did find out subsequently, I think, is that he needed to come before the board again to get it approved, and so decided to take it down.
Okay, so that's the background to your question. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Scholar, I noticed that those shots of the lot are all at an angle, not actually showing the width of the house and the relationship to the other houses, which is a little bit off-putting. The other is that in terms of design, first of all, we have to live right behind it, so if it's really awful, as Mr. Mayor thinks it might be, we'd object too. I don't want to look at the back of an ugly house for the next X number of years. And the design of this house, which I've only seen recently and had no hand in, seems to me the best looking house on 5th Street. The other houses that you see are 50s capes or ranches. Not bad houses, but not that good looking. Mr. Surface may not know it, but his house used to be a garage. It was the garage for the Fays house and got jacked up decades and decades and decades ago to put another floor.
Okay, do we have a question?
Well, the question is, does he know that, and does he consider that a fine design?
No, that's the question.
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with these.
This is get us far afield. Do you have a question for Ms. McKenzie?
No, I thought we were questioning him.
We're not cross-questioning.
I thought that's just. I apologize.
That's all right. Sure.
So just to your comments about the appropriateness of this house to the houses in the Prospect Historical District?
Overall?
Yes. Would you say that the Prospect Historical District has many houses with vinyl siding?
No, it doesn't have a lot of houses with vinyl siding, but your development guidelines do talk about the use of, it's all right to use new materials as long as they blend well. So the type of siding matters. But
Thank you.
The fact whether it's vinyl or not, I don't know, is something that's included.
I have a question, which is, if the variance is not granted and this lot cannot be used to build a house, do we have to keep paying $6,000 and $7,000 a year into perpetuity?
It's a good question, and I don't know the answer to that.
Do you know the answer to that?
Nobody here knows that answer.
Pardon me?
Nobody here knows that answer.
Go ahead, state your name.
Marilyn
Address.
Fahey, 435 Prospect Street. Just a question, and you maybe don't even know. What my problem is the size of this house. I do feel that it's the McMansion look on a very small piece of property. But I don't want to, ruin your retirement plans. Would the owners and the builders consider building a smaller, more reasonable house on this property, or if the board refuses, is this a done deal and they're stuck with the property?
I think that's a question better put to my client, because I haven't asked him that question.
Okay.
Well, the problem with that question is that reasonable is in the eyes of the beholder.
Well, this is true, but even you said this is a big house for that size.
Well, I was not.
Isn't it your in-laws who did the original subdivision?
It is my in-laws, and let me explain a little. I'm not at all surprised that Mr. Marshall, a very shrewd businessman, told my father-in-law, I just want to put a driveway there. Can I buy this lot? I am also not at all surprised that my very frugal Irish father-in-law said, he's going to buy it, put a driveway in, I'll have the same looking backyard, and I won't have to pay the taxes on it. So it was it was a win-win situation for him. Plus, Mr. Marshall leased us that property for $1 a year, so my husband and I could plant a vegetable garden. So, all in all, no one ever expected something to be built on this property.
Yeah, but until 1970, until 2003, it was a complying lot.
True. But, Mr. Marshall wanted it for a driveway, and that's pretty much all we knew until Mr. Marshall moved to Ireland.
But now we're here with this.
And now we're here, and that's why, I'm asking the question. This is a very, very big building. Mr. Surface, they're right. Your house did used to be the carriage house for my mother-in-law's house. Now, if y'all turn around and look at that wall, if I'm standing in his driveway, the wall behind you
You're supposed to be
is...
asking questions to the planner.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm the only one that can say that. You have to be asking a question.
Well, you started, interacting.
Oh, okay.
Ask a question for the planner, please.
Okay, where's the planner?
She's hiding.
Sure. She's hiding.
Ms. McKinsey?
I'm sorry, I was just checking the size of the building. The third floor is not a full floor, because it's not permitted to be. And the first 2 floors are each about 1,100 square feet.
Okay, but let's look behind them. If standing there, if pretend I'm in Mr. Surface's driveway, about the height of the porch and the bottom of the first floor is going to be the top of that railing. To me, that's a bit overwhelming for something that's 5 feet away from me. Do you not see that?
No, I actually can see, because I looked at the plan and I can see that that probably is the part of the building where it is because of the slope down on
Right.
Mr. Service's lot. It's the hardest to hide it, and I think the only thing, if the board wanted to require, some landscape plantings along there to build up, so to hide some of that lower part, that is something that might be a reasonable condition.
But they only have 5 feet to do that landscape planting.
Well, you can do something with a hedge that will grow fairly tall. There are things you can do. If the board feels that's reasonable, it's a variance. They can impose a condition. So I do understand what you're saying. It's part of it is the situation that, the way the lot sits relative to fit and where Mr. Service's lot sits relative to fit. But I understand the point you're making. I can't really argue with that.
Okay, but I would be interested to know if they would consider building something smaller than this.
That's a
and take-
question for my client.
Okay.
I can't answer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, come on forward.
Sheikh Levine, I testified by question before. So. Just a couple of questions. You had talked about the houses on the other side of 5th Street and said, well, they had similar side areas, correct?
Side yard setbacks.
Side yard
Yes.
setbacks.
They're different houses, but they have similar sides.
But would you concede that the overall mass facing the street of this house is much greater? I mean, those are wide, but they're also very low, so it doesn't make this canyon look.
They're different. This will be taller but narrower.
So there will be a lot larger massive house on this 50-foot.
I didn't evaluate the total mass. We were attempting to design a house that we felt met the design guidelines rather than a house that was more from the 1950s. And so consequently, we ended up with a 2.5-story house, which is what's proposed. I don't know that we can achieve the same kind of appearance of those houses in a 2.5-story house.
Right, so you're saying that what's going to be built there is going to have this very large appearance compared to the houses across the street?
It will be taller than the houses across the street. It will
With
be
the same
taller.
side setback, so it will have a very large mass
It'll
that
have
you're
the
looking
same
for.
side yard setback, but it will be taller.
Right, okay. And again, I just wanted to clarify, is the request for an envelope variance being withdrawn? Because otherwise, is not most of your testimony about how you take the historic things in there, et cetera? That's irrelevant for that, isn't it?
I believe that the board expects to impose a condition on its approval of this in order to be able to be satisfied that the negative criteria will be met.
But your client is still asking for an envelope variance.
My client is wishing.
It's interesting what you say.
He's not, at this point, he submitted the architectural plans. He is prepared for the fact that the board will approve the variance conditioned on a particular plan or set of alternative plans, which are the ones that will meet the height requirement. He would like some flexibility. That's mainly what he would like, is the flexibility to be able to, you know, bump out a wall or in response to the request of the purchaser, if that is acceptable to the board. If it is not, the board will not allow him to do that.
Okay. You also testified that we should trust this builder because look what he did on Prospect Street, this beautiful house he built there.
Well, there were others
It fits right in.
that, but I did say that he did quite a good job on Prospect Street, and that is part of what educated him as to what the board was looking for, what the Township of South Orange Village was looking for in terms of design.
But that is not, in fact, what he wanted to build when he first came to this board.
He has learned what the township wants through the process.
Okay, and that house does not have vinyl siding? The house on Prospect Street?
I'm not sure.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, he's going to address vinyl siding. He will speak to the board.
Okay, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Do we have other questions from anyone? For Ms. McKinsey? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No, that's it. You had your chance. Let's keep going.
Emilio Cruz is the owner of the LLC, and he just wanted to put some testimony quickly on the siding, as it's come up a number of times.
Okay.
Mr. Cruz? Emilio Cruz, you're the sole proprietor.
Mr. Cruz, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you'll give to this board this evening is the whole truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and address for the board.
My name is Emilio Cruz. I live at 4 Wetmore Avenue, Maplewood, New Jersey.
Mr. Cruz, can you discuss the type of siding that you intend to put on this house and what was put on in the other house you built in South Orange, just around the corner on Prospect?
As this board will recall, back in August of 2012, I pretty much, out of principle, held to vinyl siding. And that was really out of principle. I told this board that until vinyl siding was outlawed, that's what I would start with. I decided to put Hardy Plank, which is a fiber cement board, on Prospect Street because I felt it was more appropriate. I felt it would look better. My arm wasn't twisted by anyone to do it. It's what I felt was in the best interest and that would sell the house better. It's what I felt was right. After investigating and studying it, I felt that it would be more appropriate, and it came out beautifully. But they didn't get vinyl siding, which is what I pushed for and what I was granted, and it's in the resolution, but I chose to go in a different direction.
So what are we doing on this? Because today we're on 5th Avenue.
On 5th Street, I'm going to hold for vinyl siding, and I would put on what I felt was appropriate, if the board so deemed, if the board allowed me to do it. But that's what I would start with. Does it mean that would end up there? I'm not going to cut off my nose to spite my face. I'm going to do what's appropriate and what I feel is best and what's going to be...
And this is a siding that's permitted in South Orange.
It's a siding that's permitted, but you know, there's something that I'm really considering. I'm 85%, but this may be my home for a couple of years. Okay, I may live there, and I would favor Hardy Plank if I'm going to be there for a couple of years. But I'm still, vinyl siding is acceptable. We gave the board some vinyl siding even on Prospect. We haven't. There's been no negative connotations or objections to it, because what we did was the board specifically called for cedar impressions in the gable ends. We put it in, it's beautiful. I don't believe that many people could tell what it is from that distance.
Thank you. Any questions?
We have questions for Mr. Cruz. Mr. Adler.
So there was a particular kind of vinyl siding that you proposed and that was approved on Prospect, correct?
Well, there was a particular siding that the board approved by resolution in the gable ends only, and vinyl siding on the rest of the home. Yes, that's the answer to your question.
So there, I recall you brought in siding, and it was
cedar impressions for the gable ends.
Right, it was for those specific ends of the building where we wanted it to look like cedar shakes.
Okay. That's not what you're proposing for this project, is it?
Yes, something similar. There are different shapes of, we're calling for cedar impressions up in the gable ends, and some, depending on what house we do. If we do the hip roof, there's really no gable except for what we're putting in the front, and that we would put some shake on. I would recommend cedar impressions for that. If we do the gable style roof, we would go in with the cedar impression again, because it looks great and it holds up well.
And there was a question or statement from somebody in the audience. I didn't follow it, so maybe you can help me. Was it the house on Prospect that somebody said that you were building something other than what the plans showed before this board?
Here's what happened in that situation. We have a basement footprint. The basement, which is a footprint of the house. What we did was the master bedroom was in 5 feet from the side porch. What we wanted to do at the request of a particular purchaser was to move it out over the basement. We weren't going to encroach into side yards or anything. It's really the way the resolution was just so tightly written that it confined us to no changes. I'll give you an example. Right now, before this board, what you're going to get is an application soon from the person who purchased this home, because they have to appear before this board again to put a set of stairs from the deck. Just a set of stairs. We are so confined that it's making it difficult to maneuver. I'll give you an example. On what is it, Meeker Avenue? The planning board approved a building envelope, a subdivision to a 42-foot lot with a building envelope, and that person is going to put who knows what. But they have the flexibility to work with the plan and work with it over time.
I don't believe that's what the resolution says from the planning board, Mr. Cruz, because I recall specifically writing that and making sure that the applicant built what he presented to the board.
I'll take a look at that.
Mr. Dwyer is the attorney for the planning board also.
I understand it. But do you know what type of house they're going to build? What sort of manufacturing? Because from what I understand, it's going to be
let's stay focused on this application. I think you're on point when you're talking about your application. Let's stay away from other applications. Do we have other questions for Mr. Cruz? Ms. Gruhl?
Yes, in our memo, we did mention that we would like to have some testimony regarding landscaping or trees. And if the board chose to suggest that there may be some landscaping in the front, is that something that along the side and/or that would be something that you would be willing to comply with?
The board asked, we told the board for Prospect Street, for instance, that we will put a tree in the front. We're going to put 3 trees in the front because I'm pro-tree. I have a beautiful Quonset cherry in front of my house. Love them.
Just wanted to clarify that. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have other questions for Mr. Cruz. Do members of the public have any questions for Mr. Cruz?
somebody up here before that, I thought they had a question that only the owner could answer. Sorry.
Okay, if this particular house is denied, would you consider building something smaller
If I'm moving into the house, that's the house I would want to move into.
if you're selling the house?
I believe that's the house that someone would like to buy.
Well, and I will agree with you, that is a lovely house for another lot, not for this one.
I disagree.
Well, okay. So your answer is, it's a done deal, either this or nothing, and you're going to walk away?
No, I'd like to have a building envelope if I could. I'm flexible. I'd like to have a building envelope. However, I will build, if the board wants to lock me into this, I'm willing to do it.
And if they want to lock you into something smaller?
I don't know what they want to lock me into. I'll have to know that. I'd have to know that.
Okay. Well, maybe they can figure that out. But it's not a done deal. It's still open to
This is the
Andy
house.
and Sue? And that's the question. Is it a done deal or not? If you refuse, is your deal done?
I think he answered your question. It would depend upon if this board were to ask for something different, he'd have to hear it first. I think he answered your question.
Okay.
Okay, do we have other questions for Mr. Cruz? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You have anyone else to speak?
That's our presentation. We presented the negative and the positive criteria for the variances, and we're looking for the board not to condemn this lot.
Thank you. Okay, now's the time for statements for members of the public, pro or con, about this application. Who would like to speak? Mr. Surface?
Yes. May I give you copies of this?
Yes. Why don't you stand in front of the microphone?
What is that, Mr. Surface?
Just the copies of what
Stand
I'm
in front of the
going to say.
microphone, please.
Copies of what I'm going to say, if you would like to have copies so that you don't have to...
Okay.
Okay.
You want to present those to the board, Mr. Surface? We're going to mark those as 02? Jed?
02?
02?
So I just have a few points. As you all know, I'm sorry, I'm going to read this, but South Orange changed its ordinance to require 90-foot width or street frontage on all buildable lots to prevent subdividing of properties and resultant infill, which would disturb the character of neighborhoods and lead to high-density pockets, contrary to the smart growth plan. The current application proposes a large 3-story house with vinyl siding, which will extend to within 4 and change feet of either side of the lot, and within, I believe, more like 18 feet of Mrs. Fahey's lovely historical home. While the property in question is referred to as a lot and given an address of 124 Fifth Street, it has never had any structure built on it and never been an address for anything. It was part of the Fahey's backyard and was sold, as you've heard tonight, to their next-door neighbor to allow for a driveway to their neighbor's carriage house. To me, this application is a prime example of what our town's current ordinances were designed to prevent. That is, subdivision and infill of dwellings whose size, density, design, and materials disturb the character and, frankly, the value of surrounding properties and the neighborhood in general. The application proposes a 3-story house with the basement almost halfway above ground, thus more like 3.5 stories above ground, and such a building would tower over the other houses on the block and appear totally out of scale, especially because it would it sits or would sit significantly uphill from all existing houses on the street. The proposed construction would require the removal of approximately 20 shade trees and cause unknown impact on storm runoff, To my knowledge, no environmental impact study has been done regarding this application, which seems particularly important since there has never been a dwelling on the site. If you compare the application, and I really hope you'll particularly pay attention to this, these are my numbers as I walk things off. If you compare the application to the existing properties immediately surrounding it, here are the numbers. The average footprint of the existing houses is 1,080 square feet, whereas the application proposes a footprint of more like 1,600 square feet, 48% larger. The average square feet of living and storage space, including basements, of existing properties is about 2,900 square feet, whereas the application proposes approximately 5,300 square feet, or 82% larger. The average lot size of existing houses is a little over 8,000 square feet, whereas the application lot size is only 5,000, or 60% smaller. The average ratio of house footprint to lot size for the existing properties is about 15%, whereas the application proposes a ratio of 32%, or more than double. And finally, the average ratio of living space to lot size for existing properties is 35%, whereas the application proposes a ratio of approximately 105%, or triple the average. So even without considering the inappropriateness of the proposed design and materials, the above numbers make it clear to me that this application is significantly out of proportion and out of character to this neighborhood. And I would just like to add that because you members of the board, I'm sure, are making your decision in large part based on the reports you received from Higher Gruel. In both the February 18 and subsequent March reports from them, in the very first paragraph under property and project description, the second sentence reads, "The 5,000 square foot lot is currently vacant and is surrounded by single-family homes on other similarly sized lots." And I find, first of all, it's not currently vacant. It has always been vacant. And second, that the surrounding homes are not on similarly sized lots. They're all larger. The average being 8,000 square feet versus 5. Thank you for your time. Am I supposed to stay here for questions?
No. Thank you. Do we have other statements?
So I don't know how the board is going to decide. I do think that John has very valid objection as the immediate neighbor to the size of this house. It is a very large house on a pretty small lot. I do sympathize with Andy and Sue that they purchased this property. They want to be able to build something. It does have, it doesn't have the same impact on me as it does on John or Andy and Sue. But I would like to say that whatever the board does decide, that there are some restrictions on what is built so that we are getting a house that is appropriately sized and keeping in character with the neighborhood.
Thank you. Do we have other statements?
Hi, my name is Christian Quartius. I just wanted to congratulate you guys for being...
What's your address, sir?
129 Reynolds Place, South Orange.
Okay.
I just wanted to congratulate you guys for being heroes for being here tonight. And I wanted to just speak up in support of being able to build on this lot. I think the testimony that I've heard tonight has been thorough, beyond the beyond. And I have seen the house on Prospect, and I have every confidence that it will be a beautiful, beautiful home in the neighborhood.
Thank you.
I just wanted to open up the pictures of...
Microphone.
I just wanted to testify.
open up the pictures of the homes on Fifth Street.
Who are you speaking for?
Excuse me?
Who are you speaking
Stephen Scholar, attorney for John Surface. Thanks. Because everybody's focusing on a broader area.
Mr. Scholar, Mr. Surface just presented to the board.
Okay, thank you.
It has to be one or the other of you.
Thank you. Okay. Move forward.
Jacob Levine, 219 Prospect Street. I just want to pretty much second what Joe said. I don't not want anything built there in perpetuity, etc. But I believe at the moment it is a non-conforming lot. If something is built there, I think it should be more size appropriate. The plans that I've seen, I believe, is not size appropriate. I think it's way too big, and based on that size, I would say it contravenes the very reason for the change in the zoning laws to make things 90-foot conforming, which was to prevent these oversized houses being built on subdivided lots. So I certainly support the ability of Sue and Andy to sell the thing, and I have no objection to something being built. But again, if a variance is given, it should be given on the basis that the house being built is more size appropriate than what's shown at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. We have other statements. Okay, thank you. So now it's time for the board.
I'd like to follow up based on one of the, I don't know if this is out of procedure, but I'd like to follow up with the planner based on some of the statements that were made. Is that allowable?
We're going to be discussing among ourselves. I'd rather not go back into asking more questions of the planners and opening it up again. Is this something you really feel strongly about?
I'll tell you the reason is that the statement that was read by Mr. Surface seems to have a lot of information in it that we may want to use, but I think a lot of it's incorrect. And at least one item I'm not certain about, and I would like to check with the planner to make sure that it's reasonably stated.
All right, so you have one item about a factual element on the letter about whether it's correct or not based on the applicant's property.
Right, I can say a lot about some of the other items that are
okay,
correct,
go ahead.
Okay.
This is for the planner, Ms. McKinsey. Is she still here?
Oh, is it me? I'm sorry. I thought it was your...
There's a question upon one of the objectors. Mr. Surface wrote the letter, and he averred some facts here. And so Mr. DeScala has a question.
Okay.
You're familiar with the concept of FAR,
yes.
Correct? One of Mr. Surface's questions talks to the average ratio of living space to lot size for the existing properties in the area, as opposed to this one. That's an FAR kind of question, floor area ratio. And he represents that number is 35% on the area properties and 105% on this. Now, I think if he's comparing lots such as lots 6, 7, and 8, which are gigantic lots, to this one, then that would distort this representation. And I just want to get your testimony about whether or not it applies to the smaller lots on Fifth. Have you done any similar analysis?
I have not done a similar analysis. I do not have information about usable basement space and usable attic space and things like that on these other houses, so I did not attempt to make that analysis.
You need to use the microphone.
I'm so sorry. I know, I'm answering the specific question about the neighborhood. I understand the ordinance does not have an FAR limit, but...
Oh, I'm aware of that as well.
But I understand you understand that.
Yes.
I know the question that you're asking, and the answer is, I don't know what would be the FAR on each of the other lots, and I don't know what lots were included in Mr. Surface's analysis. He drew conclusions. He could have been looking at a very wide range of lots or a very narrow range of lots.
Okay.
So
You're in the same boat I'm in then. Okay.
Yes, I'm in the same boat. I don't know what to make of that.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so now at this point, what we do is we debate or discuss among ourselves. And as usual, I request that the board members, whatever your decisions are, that you articulate your reasoning, because that's what's fair for both the applicant as well as the members of the public who've taken their time and their money, as the case may be, to come out tonight. You don't have to articulate your reasoning, but I think you should, and we usually do a good job of that as we discuss. So does anybody want to start? Mr. Don.
I have a question for Mr. Renda, just a basic question. When does a basement become a story? You know, because we're on a sloped lot here, so on the downhill side, a good amount of that basement is out of the ground. Do we have a situation where we have now a 3-story building?
It's not considered a story. I think it's 50% of the building is below the grade. Susan, you might know better.
There is currently
It's ambiguous.
some
in the
proposed amendments to definitions, one of which is how you define story and basement. Right at this point, I believe, Sal, you and I both believe that the way it's defined now, a basement is not considered a story.
Right.
However it's constructed.
However it's constructed. The only thing is the half story, and that goes to the attic,
goes to the attic
usable space, and
But
it
if we
can't be
have-
more than
On the
50%.
downhill side of this building, if we have 6 or 7 feet of the basement that's out of the ground, when is a basement not a basement? That's my question.
It's not clearly defined in the ordinance. It is not addressed.
I hear you guys saying two different things, though.
It isn't clearly defined, and if portion of the floor is below ground level, it's a question of whether it's considered basement, cellar. In this case, the uphill side is significantly below grade. The low hill side is a couple of feet below grade, with the exception of the driveway, and that's why the retaining walls are there. So I think my interpretation would be that this is a basement and a garage.
And based on over 50% of the area being below ground.
It's very gray. The ordinance is not clear in that respect. I think more to the concern, though, would be the height. And I think that's where the height plays into this particular situation. You know, the height of the structure, whether as you said, 5 or 6 feet of the foundation is exposed, as opposed to 2 or 3 feet of the foundation is exposed. And basically, it still comes down to the allowable height. How far out of the existing ground can the building stick up?
Is there a proposal in front of the board?
It goes to story. That's where it's not only height, it's story, whether it's 3 stories or whether it's 2.5. There is, in fact, something in front of the planning board to refine many of the definitions in the ordinance now. But at this point in time, it is what it is, unfortunately.
And the half-story, which is permitted, you're allowed 2.5-story structures. The half-story means that the floor area of the attic space, whatever, can be finished only to 50% of the story directly below it.
Right.
It's only 50% of the
There's
area.
no question with that. I was just asking about the basement.
I don't know if it helps, a basement has to be more than 50% above grade, right? So does that help?
There's also a definition for cellar.
And that's 50% below grade. And I had raised that a couple of meetings ago, and I thought the idea was that they're specifically defined differently, so that basement and cellar are different things.
Unfortunately, they're
But
not
not
linked
considered.
in the zoning into whether it's a story or not. That's
Right.
the problem. There's no crossover in the definition. So it sort of gives you a definition, but it doesn't tie it to height.
To the ordinance standard.
Right, there's a gap, unfortunately.
So that's something that needs to be cleared up.
I mean, from the point of view of height, as defined, the building's compliant.
Right.
My only question was, if that basement is is sticking out and is considered a story, then it's a 3.5-story building, not a 2.5-story building. But I don't think our ordinance really identifies it that way.
Well, in terms of being able to discuss modifications to with the applicant, does it have to be an actual ordinance?
We could discuss any kind of conditions that we wanted to put on it.
Okay.
Well, I'll start then with what.
Okay.
From my point of view, this site was subdivided in 1972, and it was a legal lot in 1972. It was a legal lot for 31 years. And suddenly now, it's not a legal lot because we changed the frontages to try to stop subdivisions of big lots, AKA Lot 5, into a medium lot and a small lot next to it. So essentially what happened here in 1972 was what the zoning was trying to stop in 2003. Having said that, though, I have problems saying that this site can't be developed with a house. Because short of Lot 3 and Lot 5 splitting that lot down the middle and each buying half, I don't see how there's a reasonable solution for the owners of Lot 4. Essentially, it's if they can't build on there, it's a taking. I don't know who's taking it, but they're being told that they can't develop a piece of property that they own in town. Having said that, I have a problem kind of getting my arms around this idea of envelope, footprint. Are we approving a specific building for this lot? Or are we just approving criteria that we'd like to see for this lot?
Well,
so,
I mean, maybe we should talk about that, but certainly my feeling is we're approving the plans that are in front of us, and I think the design of this structure is critical to approving a variance on lot width, to me. And so I, for one, am not going to be voting in favor of an envelope approval, right? We have a plan in front of us, and that's what I'm considering.
Yeah, let's nail that one down right away.
That's right away, no envelope.
Anybody else for the envelope?
I would tend to agree, especially in this case, where there's controversy surrounding it, there's neighborhood concern. It's a historic district. I mean, there may be cases in which I would be amenable to an envelope situation. It just has happened to be one of them.
Mr. Adler?
Yeah, I agree. I'm not for the envelope. On the other hand, are we put in the position of choosing this plan, which some think may be too big, or an envelope? And I don't like being put in that position.
Well, look, there's all sorts of things we could do here. I'll state also for the record, there is no way I would vote for an envelope on this. It's not anything against Mr. Cruz. It's just that we would be foolish to just, in this sort of constrained setting here where it is a variance that goes against the current wishes of lot width, that we would allow just anything to be built there. So it would be a disservice to the townspeople. At the same time, Mr. Cruz has worked with us before, and he knows now that at least he's had one example of where he needs to kind of plan ahead and think about what could come up. So he's learned that lesson, and he actually put in here a variation that he might go for, which I think is smart on his part. But no, there's no way that I would ever consider an envelope in this kind of setting. So,
the other thing I would say about this case is that I think Fifth Street here is a transitional street between larger lots and larger houses on Prospect and smaller houses and smaller lots on Academy. And I think that's part of the problem here, is that there's a mix, and there isn't, as opposed to on the case on Prospect Street, where there was a very consistent streetscape, that it was clear we wanted to make sure the building fit within. Here we have a real mix, and it's a mix caused by the fact that it's a transition between two zones. You could face left and say I should build one way. You could face right and say I should build another way. I think the house that's proposed does fit better with the Prospect Street turn, than not. But I think that's part of the problem of this street, and is that when you think, and I take the letter quite seriously. I think it's a very well considered and well written letter, and I think your points are quite valid. But the law of averages here is a bit deceptive because we're mixing a bit of apples and oranges here, and that's part of the problem of this site, and part of the problem of this application for me is just that, right?
I wanted to step back and address some of the specifics of land use law, and that aside from the size, if anybody has concerns about this to me represents a classic C1 variance of a request due to exceptional size and area of the property. It's a classic C1 variance, so it's a very conservative notion, the idea of following what the law suggests and interpreting this as a C1 variance, and to not zone something out of use that was a legal subdivision. Also, I am persuaded by the testimony both from the planner and the attorney and our attorney that this is not a merger. In this particular case, it's an odd T-shaped lot, so that was a question I had, so I don't think it's a merger. And then I was going to say something else about this particular lot. This is not a subdivision. I was there for the testimony in 2003. I live in Montrose. I know about subdivisions, and I was for that ordinance that prohibited further subdivisions. If they were proposing a subdivision here, I would say no, because that's what the current ordinance is. However, this is different. This was legally subdivided, so it's a different legal circumstances.
Right, it was subdivided and not merged. Those two key pieces of information.
Right. And they've been paying taxes on it, too. So it's clear that it's been a separate lot, and I think that's what we have to keep in mind. Or else, yes, we zoned it into inutility. And I'm a believer in property rights, and I don't think we in this town want to send that message that we're not going to respect the law. So that's my broad view on it being a C1 variance. I'll kind of wait to hear from others about their concerns rather than me try to sway people other ways about the actual size of the property or of the house that's being proposed.
I would shy away from being overly concerned about the taxes situation. At the risk of sounding insensitive, everybody pays taxes on their property, whether it's considered a separate lot or not. And because we don't have a tax card, we don't know how it's being taxed. We know it's being taxed, but we don't know as what. And so we really, I don't think, should take that into consideration.
I don't. What's bothering me, and I don't know if it's important, is doing nothing. Doing nothing bothers me because I don't believe that by turning this down or not doing anything is fair for the present owner to say, well, guess what, you bought it, and the only person that you can sell this to is someone who has to do something small or something that fits in the neighborhood. And that's on my mind. I think we have to do something. Because who knows who's gonna come along tomorrow and say, okay, let me build a dollhouse here. Or let me just take this piece of land, buy it, and do nothing. I think that's bothering me.
If we were to give this, grant this variance, it would go to the current owner of the property, correct?
The variance runs with the land.
Right, but we'd be granting it to the current owner, not to the developer, right?
Correct. Yeah, I'll go ahead and speak now. So I went over the C1 variance. As far as I'm in favor of this. I think this is a lovely looking home. Yes, it's somewhat fat for the lot. It is, and I understand that. But it's a nice looking home, and it's frankly nicer looking than some of the homes on that block. And I think I would not be I doubt I would be objecting to this if I lived on that block. I would be glad that somebody would be willing to put in some money into this town and build something nice. Sometimes I don't understand if a house is too big, if a house is too small if it's not exactly, it's like the porridge sometimes. And we went through this somewhat with Mr. Cruz's last application. This is a nice house, so it meets the positive land use law criteria of fitting in with the character in general of the neighborhood. Again, it might be too fat. I don't think it's too fat. I don't want to specify those things too closely. We're already if we're going to approve this, we're going to constrain him enough in specifying a particular house. As far as the negative criteria goes, I think he meets those for the reasons that the appearance of the house is similar to certainly to many on Prospect Street, like Mr. Parlapiano said. Not perhaps so along Fifth Street, but it's kind of a transitional street. So it's not going to fit exactly with anything. And he proposed to be a bit more grand than perhaps the other homes on the street. Well, I'd rather somebody be grand than falsely modest. And so I like what they're offering, and I think this will be a nice addition to the town.
Well, I think that my problem is if we get into, and I'm glad that we're not getting into the identification of an envelope, because we're all going to have opinions about what the envelope should be. And from my point of view, I think the house should be narrower and a little deeper, but it does meet the zoning criteria for this zone, so I don't want to get in a situation where I'm dictating building width. I could dictate it if they were asking for a side yard variance. They're not asking for a side yard variance. So I think in general the footprint works on this site. Is it a little broad? Yes, it's a little broad, and I would say if any redesign is going to be done, I would make it a little narrower, but I think this is an application I could support, and I concur with Rusty's sort of synopsis of the positive and negative criteria. And I think it's one of those things where I think we sort of have to take what's being presented as the proposal and not look at this in the abstract, because I think then it just becomes something we could be here for weeks talking about and never come to a consensus. So we have a proposal in front of us, and I think it's yay or nay on this proposal. I find that to be really the way we should go.
Mr. Don also stated some of the other negative criteria, I think, is that the only variance requested is lot width.
That's right, and we had good testimony, and it was good to have the neighbors here to testify that they attempted to sell the lot to the neighbors, and the planner's testimony that even if they could buy a few feet here and a few feet there from the neighbors, they couldn't cure the lot width problem in any case. And I think that that testimony also is important, that they did look at the options, and there really are not options to cure the lot width problem. I agree. I agree with the general tone of the comments that I think this is a good application. I think the problems with the application are that this is a transition block, but it is a transition block, and we can't change that. But given that constraint, I'm still comfortable with this application.
I agree with the synopsis that Rusty gave, and also Bill and Mike. And, well, it's not actually part of the application. I'm aware of the job that Mr. Cruz did on Prospect. I think he did a good job. And I know he's worked with the board before, and I think he'll work with the town in getting this up and running. So I'm in favor of the application.
Yeah, I don't think, and I think that's important too. Behind everything, there's a certain amount of trust, although that's hard to define, to decide totally on. Trust is implicit in any approval that, at least on this one case, he has a track record of doing a good job, and that carries some weight.
I support this application, and I would not be surprised, knowing the track record of Mr. Cruz, if he listens carefully to Mr. Dan and in building says, you know what, I'm gonna remember William Dan and make it a little smaller. So I am going to support this application.
Mr. DeScala?
I think that in general, given that this is not a merger, this is it's not a subdivision or re-subdivision application, that it's a lot that exists that is really distinct and separate from the lot that it's adjacent to in the same ownership, that it really is a lot that needs to be developed. And I see the concerns of the neighbors, and I understand our ability as a board to impose certain restrictions or request modifications on the part of the applicant to make a lot more acceptable within the context of the neighborhood. But the reality is that this is a lot that is being proposed to be built on within the zoning code, and if it didn't have this lot width issue, then we wouldn't be here. And that was kind of my mood coming into this, absent the issues with the merger and re-subdivision. And since those aren't issues, then I would have to agree. I mean, I would personally prefer if it were pulled a little away from the property lines, but as was stated in the testimony, the neighbor's setback is significant enough that it kind of makes up the difference.
All right, so,
what are we thinking about the driveway?
Yeah, so I think we have two other things to discuss.
The design waiver?
The design waiver on the driveway.
Do we have something to say about that, or?
Well, I'm okay with it, because they have that retaining wall.
Right, I think that's right.
So they don't hit their car, ding their car, so
totally
I'm okay.
acceptable, yeah.
Yeah, the only thing with the driveway is we're gonna need to confirm with Sal the permeability of the pavers relative to their coverage. You know, because they're taking a 60% credit on the coverage of the driveway based on the pavers.
Can we note that on the resolution, even though it's not a variance being requested?
Mm-hmm. And the other is landscaping, and it is true. I think the stormwater retention helps, as they're clearing the lot. But I do think we didn't get testimony really about a landscaping plan other than the willingness to landscape, and I think we should note that they should be working with Sal on a landscaping plan.
Susan?
I'm sorry?
Susan or Sal?
Well, okay, Susan,
No,
I'm sorry.
We could define specific landscape.
Do we really want to go there and define,
I would.
He's gonna they're gonna
I would
landscape.
caution you on the landscaping plan, because there really aren't any regulations in the village to enforce landscaping, so the new owner of the property and
Could
this
take it all out.
can come down and, legally take down a tree or change the landscaping at some point. So.
And I don't see, I'm not looking here saying, oh, this is essential, that, that you need a tree right here in order for me to sign off on this puppy. I don't see it in this case.
I would
Sproul, you're looking at
suggest,
me with
no,
incredulous-
I would suggest that that there not be a plan, but that there be a provision for them to provide landscaping and/or some kind of trees, shade trees or street trees, so that you're not dictating exactly what it is, but they would know that they have to provide some softening, some green and softening, particularly in the front.
There's a lot of concern stated about the side, you know, some kind of a buffer area from the big wall of building that people would have to look at.
Right, and that's what...
I'm not sure what I would specify. Put one tree in the front yard?
No, I think they, to a certain extent, you would have to rely on their judgment, but for them to have to provide landscaping and/or some trees, and then let them determine exactly what that is, just so that it's not totally not addressed, and yet at the same time, you know, again, it's their judgment.
Yeah, I'm,
It's sort of like it's sort of like approving a building envelope and not specifically dividing
Yes.
the building.
I mean, what if
That
that
is true.
landscaping is they choose to do nothing, and that's my landscaping, it's just gonna be grass. I don't, Mr. Cruz, looks like you're eager to, should we,
It's just that I'm willing to agree to put 2 trees, one in the front yard and one at the tree belt, if that helps, and that go into the resolution. And of course, shrubbery and so forth across the front of the porch.
Foundation.
okay, well, if he's in agreement
I'm
with
willing
it,
to do that.
then let's put that in there.
Okay.
Thank you. So a tree in front, tree in back.
And foundation plantings.
Tree belt.
Tree belt.
At the tree belt,
Which is
what?
That's-
where exactly?
That's the area between the curb and the sidewalk on the town property.
Street tree.
Street tree.
Street tree. And
Shrubbery in front of the
shrubbery
porch.
in front of the porch. Thank you.
So there's I guess an intriguing concept in my head. If we grant a variance for these specific plans, with both for the plot plan and for the building plans, would the applicant be able to reduce its size, or would they have to build to that size?
Good question. The whole purpose behind the plans being part of the discussion for lot width variance is to show the board that the substantial, the negative criteria are being met, right?
Right.
So presumably, if it was a smaller house, the negative criteria would be met perhaps better.
Right, and the reason I ask that question is that, in effect, there is somewhat of an envelope there. We're holding them to a style of the house, the way they designed it, but if they wanted to meet the need of a potential buyer by moving things around, so long as they did it within what we've approved, they would be okay to do that, right?
That sounds so vague to me. I'm not sure. I'm listening to what you're saying.
Right, well, it's a question for Mr. Dwyer.
I think what Ben presented is what they're asking for. They're saying that we're going to build this house to get this variance. So once that's done, any discretion in terms of moving walls or anything, the building department says that's substantial change, then they got to come back.
I've never had an application get approved and then...
Be reduced in scope?
No, and had it, and I've had ones that ended up getting built smaller. Never had the town say, no, you can't build smaller.
Right, which is, I was actually saying that, I'm just highlighting the fact that the applicant can, in fact, have some flexibility within what we're providing. They don't have to build it to the size.
Well, then we start talking smaller, and let's say Mr. Cruz, makes a bad investment on another property, and he has only got so much money, he decides to build a tiny little cape on this.
Okay.
Which is not what we agreed to. So.
And that would be a problem, you think?
He could build an awful house if he really tried.
Well, we've approved designs, not a cape. We'll be approving a style of house, so that's not
I would,
We're not talking about whether he puts a doghouse there.
I'm not sure how to build that flexibility you're looking for into what's been approved.
No, I'm not, I don't think we need to. I was
think
just,
we just have to reference these drawings, and
right.
if it changes, then we may have to see it again.
Right.
Yeah, and I would trust upon our village engineer to use his discretion as to whether it's a trivial change or not, and we've made that, but I think we should propose that we should approve, if we're going to approve it, this house.
Yeah, no, I wasn't suggesting otherwise, Rusty. I guess that's the part that was confusing.
Yeah.
I think you would look at it as this house as the maximum.
Right.
If he needed to, for some reason, for instance, even if the lot coverage, if for some reason the pavers don't work and we don't get the lot coverage, if he has to shave, you know, a couple inches off the building in some way or something like that, I don't think that would be a major issue. But obviously, at some point, expanding or changing things around, that would become an issue.
Certainly the understanding implicit, this is the maximum, but I don't know how you approve something smaller.
I think any substantial change is what it would be.
Yes.
Define substantial.
We know it when we see it.
And the only other suggestion, materials.
Do we want to force the hardy plank on him?
No. I think it should be as it's shown on these drawings.
I'm okay with his proposal as is this time. Mr. Descala?
I think what we're saying here is that we trust his judgment and that he'll do something equally tasteful as he did in his previous house on Prospect.
Well, he identifies, differing materials here, so I would expect that this is what we're going to see.
And any other conditions?
That's it, Mr. Chairman. Let me look.
Are there any concerns regarding the alternate plans within the drawings? The alternate floor plans?
My understanding is we're approving these alternate plans as an alternate if he chooses that.
Okay,
right?
so there's no, whichever attic floor plan he chooses?
No, he's actually, they've
Yes,
gotten rid of the extra height.
Right.
They've got two
sets
third floor
of-
plans.
Right.
So we give them the latitude of either one, or do we pick one?
Yes, it's the two floor plans within this no height variance application.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
would think that's the sort of flexibility he thought about, and I think that's a good idea, that sort of flexibility.
Okay. That's a good point.
Anything else, Mr. Rinda?
Just the lot coverage, he will have to conform to the lot coverage requirement,
Yes, he'll have to conform to the lot coverage requirement.
Right.
And the height and everything
Right.
else,
Correct,
right?
yeah.
We're only granting one variance.
So
I just mentioned that regarding the pavers and.
So how would the conditions read as we've stated them?
How are the conditions? There are that he will confirm lot coverage calculations meet the requirements of the ordinance through discussing the permeability of the pavers with Sal, that there will be landscaping, including one street tree, one front yard tree, and shrubbery in front of the porch. And that there's a lot width variance. And a driveway with design waiver.
All right, well,
They're going to reference the particular plans, right?
Yes,
the which?
these
The
plans.
actual plans.
So I'll go ahead and move that we approve the application as submitted with the plans and drawings that are conforming with the height, no height variance version, revised February 8th, 2013, with the conditions as stated by our attorney.
I'll second that.
Okay, Mr. Don,
Yes.
Mr. Descalo,
Yes.
Mr. Parlapiano,
Yes.
Mr. Reeves,
Yes.
Mr. Semper,
Yes.
Mr. Adler.
Yes.
Okay, very good. I want to thank everybody who showed up here, whether you appreciate the decision or not. I appreciate you all showing up and stating your opinions. Thank you. Okay, do we have any other business tonight? I think that's it. So we're the next one, we have the next one next week?
No, 2 weeks.
2 weeks? 7 o'clock? Okay, yes.
Thanks for enduring due
What?
process. That was,
Well, let me state what the next one is.
It's May 7th.
May 7th. Oh. May 7th. Okay, 7 o'clock. Meeting's adjourned.